The life of a ninja beginning in the Hidden Mist Village. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 226 Rival. Outside the battlefield, the leader of the Hazuki clan was also very nervous when he saw Mantsuki and Fuguki face each other. As long as Mantsuki defeated his opponent and got Sumehada, he would have the confidence to deal with the Three Tails Jinchuriki. He would have the possibility of ascending to the position of Mizukage. The Hazuki clan also had the hope of returning to the first family of Kirigakure. They had been waiting for this day for a long time. On the battlefield, Fuguki carried Sumehada and looked at the boy opposite calmly and said, "The identity of the Hazuki clan can help you get the opportunity to use the ninja sword, but I don't know how much power you can exert." After that, he showed a very mocking smile on his face. Ding. Mantsuki put away the scroll, picked up the Daoki, and knocked the hammerhead on the axe, and the crisp metal collision sound immediately rang out. "Senior, you are also an old man among the ninja sword users. Why don't you give me an evaluation and see how my kamiwari is worse than that one?" Before he finished speaking, Manu tightly grasped the kamiwari with both hands, rushed to the front of the pufferfish ghost in an instant, raised the silver axe blade, and chopped it down. Clang! The pufferfish ghost frowned and immediately blocked the axe blade with the Sumehada in his hand. "Young man, you are too impatient." Looking at the young man who was close at hand, he said coldly, "I can't wait to fight with the real 7 ninja swordsmen like you, senior. Please don't be offended." Manu replied with a smile, but the hammer in his left hand smashed down the axe mercilessly. Clang! With a heavy collision sound in the tense eyes of the pufferfish ghost, the black hammerhead fell on the axe. Then, a huge force was transmitted along the axe blade to the Sumehada, and then through the handle, it was transmitted to his body. Boom. His feet sank, and the ground immediately collapsed, and his legs sank into the broken ground. Fortunately, Sumehada's blade was very hard, and it was not broken in two by this blow. If he had used other weapons, he would not dare to block it so hard. The blunt Nifakud was said to be able to defeat all defenses. When the power transmitted from the axe blade was weakened to the extreme, the pufferfish ghost suddenly exerted force and pushed Sumehada out directly. The power of the hammer had just been exhausted, and Manu had no time to exert force again, and could not resist his counter-attack at all, and was immediately thrown out with the knife. The two soles of his feet drew a long distance on the ground, and then he stabilized his body. "I admit that I underestimated you. However, if you only rely on this little skill, it is simply a foolish dream to defeat me." Pulling out his legs that were stuck in the ground, the pufferfish ghost mocked the boy on the other side. "If you don't try, who will know?" Manu said meaningfully, holding the hammer in one hand and the axe in the other. Sumehada's ability to absorb chakra is indeed tricky, but as long as he does not abuse ninjutsu and tries to avoid direct contact with Sumehada, he still has a good chance of winning. Humph. Seeing that he was still determined to fight, Fuguki could only snort coldly and continued, "For the sake of the Hazuki clan, I will spare your life. I just hope you don't go home and cry." After that, he immediately rushed over with Sumehada. After all, Hazuki Manayu is the son of the current clan leader. Killing him like this will definitely not be conducive to gaining the support of the Hazuki clan. If he wants to stay more comfortably in the position of Mizukage, he still has to keep the boy's life and do Hazuki a favor. Thinking of this, the Sumehada he chopped off couldn't help but feel a little lighter. Boom. Manayu easily blocked Sumehada with the hammerhead and chopped the axe blade in his other hand directly at the round man in front of him. At the same time, he also mobilized most of the body's water to his right hand and used the water transformation technique to transform, making his right hand several times larger. Seeing the fierce attack, the puffer ghost immediately gave up the idea of blocking it hard and immediately withdrew. Boom. Manu's axe blade fell into the air and hit the ground, instantly splitting the ground within a radius of 2 meters. The puffer ghost's pupils shrank again. With such power, combined with the slash, even he could not easily block it. Then, he suppressed the distracting thoughts in his heart and once again raised Sumehada to stick to it. Because the water transformation technique of the Hazuki clan is completely immune to physical attacks, even ninjutsu attacks can hardly cause effective damage to them. Fortunately, the Samehada in his hand has the ability to absorb chakra. Just rely on close combat to absorb the opponent's chakra, and the water transformation technique will be useless. Little did he know that his plan was exactly what Hazuki Manu wanted. The water transformation technique cannot completely immunize against the damage of ninjutsu, but only weakens the damage of ninjutsu by offsetting it with chakra. Facing the continuous ninjutsu attacks, even with the water transformation technique, it is not enough. If the pufferfish demon pulls away and engages in a long-distance ninjutsu confrontation with him, he will feel a little uncomfortable. Because the Samehada in the opponent's hand can absorb chakra, which is immune to ninjutsu attacks in disguise. In a long-distance ninjutsu confrontation, Manu has no chance to gain the upper hand. It is impossible to defeat the watermelon mountain pufferfish demon. It can only consume chakra in vain and weaken himself. Close combat is the result he wants. Although close combat is also very dangerous against Samehada, he has already prepared a strategy before the battle and has no fear in his heart. Then, the two people with their own thoughts launched a fierce swordsmanship confrontation. This surprised the audience inside and outside the venue. You know, Manzuki Hazuki is only 14 or 15 years old. It's not enough that he can use the dowry freely. He can even compete with the famous Ziguishin pufferfish in swordsmanship without losing at all. This really makes many adult Kirigakure jonin feel ashamed. Because, with their physical skills, they can't last more than 20 rounds in the hands of a swordsman like pufferfish. At the edge of a battlefield, Meditarumi also pinched her chin and said in surprise, "How can this guy's swordsmanship be so powerful? I've never heard of it before. I'm afraid he has only practiced this swordsmanship recently." Qishuang sighed and said with mixed feelings. Huh. Meditarumi turned her head, her face full of disbelief. Nanashiro smiled bitterly and continued to explain, "His swordsmanship is so powerful now, there are only a handful of him in the entire Hidden Mist village, and you haven't heard of it for such a long time, which is obviously unlikely. Moreover, because the styles of the swords themselves are different, the swordsmanship will also be different. Dawa has a unique form, and ordinary swordsmanship cannot be performed with Dawa at all. It must require a unique swordsmanship to cooperate with it. Unless the Kido clan has replicas of the 7 ninja swords, and Kido Mainjutsu practices it since childhood. Otherwise his swordsmanship to master Dawa can only be achieved after he obtained Dawa and slowly practiced it. But no one would have thought that Dawa would return to the Kido clan. It is meaningless to let Kido Mainjutsu practice swordsmanship that cooperates with Dawa with a replica. Therefore, I speculate that it is very likely that the last time the 7 ninja swordsmen of the ninja swordsman died, Dawa was left without a master. After he came into contact with Dawa, he practiced the corresponding swordsmanship in order to exert the power of Dawa. Well, that makes sense. Meditarumi nodded after listening. It's okay for a beheading sword, which looks similar to a normal sword. A skilled swordsman can use it. But for a sewing needle or a slashing sword, which are completely different from normal swords, it's impossible for an average person to use them. It definitely takes a long time of practice to get used to them, and that's the sword technique. Chapter 227-2. But, isn't he too good? Meditarumi still questioned unwillingly. It's not enough that Mainjutsu Hazuki has mastered the Kabuto ware in such a short time, but he can even be on par with the long famous watermelon mountain pufferfish demon in swordsmanship. If she hadn't seen it with her own eyes today, she wouldn't believe what she saw. Hearing this, Qishuang smiled bitterly and said, "In this world, there are always some gifted people who are born different, far beyond the boundaries of ordinary geniuses, and cannot be measured by common sense. Mainjutsu Hazuki is obviously one of them." After saying that, he turned around and cast his eyes on the battlefield again, falling on the boy holding the Kabuto ware and being on par with the pufferfish demon. At this age, even the so-called genius Hatek Kakashi is afraid that he can't do this. Mainjutsu Hazuki is simply a genius among geniuses. No wonder the Mainjutsu clan bet on him and let him compete for the position of Mizukage. Judging from the current situation of the battle, it is not impossible for main Jetsu Hazuki to defeat the Watermelon Mountain Pufferfish Demon. Unfortunately, this time, there is also Yagura Karatachi who is competing for the position of Mizukage. On the battlefield, main Jetsu and Hazuki fought back and forth, and the fight was very fierce. After all, Fuguki was older, had more combat experience, and had better swordsmanship skills. After dozens of rounds of confrontation, Fuguki found a flaw, used Samehada in his hand to break through the defense of Kabutoge and chop directly at main Jetsu's face. Wow. The barbs on Samehada's body stood up and fell on the boy's head, but there was no scene of blood and flesh flying. Main Jetsu liquefied his body and escaped the disaster, but was beaten into a sky full of water by Samehada. Bang. He could no longer hold Kabutoge in his hand after his body was completely liquefied and fell to the ground in an instant. The situation of the battle took a sharp turn for the worse, and there was an uproar inside and outside the field. But after thinking about it carefully, everyone felt that it was reasonable. After all, Fuguki is a long-established 7 ninja swordsman, while Hazuki main Jetsu is just a young genius. It is already remarkable that he can survive the hands of Fuguki with his swordsmanship. It's over, kid. Looking at the splashing water, Fuguki smiled triumphantly. As a fellow Kirigakure ninja and a member of the Anbu, Fuguki knows much more about the Hazuki clan's water transformation technique than others. The liquefied body certainly allows the Hazuki clan to avoid a lot of damage, but it also makes it difficult for them to effectively attack the enemy when they are liquefied, and their movement speed will also drop a lot. Originally, this was not an important problem, but in his eyes, it became a fatal flaw. The liquefied body that moves slowly and cannot cause effective attacks is just a living target for Samehada to absorb chakra. As long as Samehada can touch the opponent, it can absorb the opponent's chakra, and as for the opponent's form, it has no effect at all. Then, he followed the momentum of the knife and smashed it at the pool of liquid left by the liquefied Manu on the ground. Boom. The hard blade of Samehada smashed the ground, instantly shattering the ground around his feet. However, unexpectedly, Manu Hazuki did not materialize and struggled to fight back. Instead, in front of his surprised eyes, with the help of his liquefied body, he penetrated into the ground through the cracks in the ground. HMPH. The puffer ghost, whose plan failed, was extremely depressed and retracted Samehada. He immediately retreated in a hurry, preparing to avoid the opponent's underground sneak attack. Snap. As soon as he left, a little cold light broke out of the ground at the place where he had just stopped. Manu Hazuki followed closely behind and broke through the ground and drilled out. Oh, what a pity. Manu, who stood firmly on his feet, looked at the puffer ghost on the other side and smiled. He seemed to hold something in his right hand, and with a slight pull, the cold light that shot up into the sky suddenly stagnated, and then quickly turned back, and was easily caught in his hand. It was not until then that the pufferfish ghost saw clearly that the cold light was actually a 3-foot-long large sewing needle with a thin steel wire at the end, which was wrapped around Manu's hand. It was the long sword sewing needle, one of the 7 ninja swords. The opponent used the steel wire at the end of the sewing needle to pull it back from mid-air. At the same time, many viewers who recognized the sewing needle also exclaimed. Looking at this posture, Manu can not only use a daoki, but also a sewing needle. Very good, very good. Glancing at the daoki still lying on the ground, and then at the sewing needle in the boy's hand, the pufferfish ghost nodded with a wry smile and asked, I just don't know if you can use the flatfish and the flying foam. Won't you know in a while, senior? Manu squinted his eyes and replied with a smile, feeling very happy. Because when he just dived into the ground, the seeds of victory had been planted. Forget it then. The pufferfish ghost shook his head and said with a fierce smile, I think it's better to get rid of you now. Before he finished speaking, he rushed up again with Samehada. The sewing needle is not as good as the daoki. The slender blade is not good at head-on fighting. In close combat, his Samehada has the advantage. Seeing this, Manu Hazuki knew what the other party was planning, and immediately retreated again and again, not daring to fight him head-on. Seeing that round figure rushing into the range of 5 meters around him, he curled the corners of his mouth, hooked the steel wire at the end of the sewing needle and gently pulled it. There was a piercing sound, and a crisscrossing steel wire net suddenly rose from the ground within a radius of 10 meters, trapping the Ziguitian puffer ghost who had rashly chased after him. That was a trap set by Manu when he sneaked into the underground. HMPH. Facing the sudden attack of the steel net, the puffer ghost was not nervous at all, but spat with extreme disdain, quickly put the Samehuda stick in his hand on the ground, and then jumped lightly onto the handle of the knife. He had seen such a trick on his former companion Kirishin Kishimaru, so he naturally knew how to deal with it. The steel wire of the sewing needle is extraordinary. In addition to being extremely tough, it also has very sharp cutting properties. With this kind of steel wire, the user of the sewing needle can easily cut the enemy's flesh. Once the opponent falls into the trap set by this steel wire, just shrink the steel net, and you can easily cut off the opponent's feet and win the battle. It sounds very scary, but it is not difficult to crack such a trick. Just avoid the wire mesh on the ground, and avoid direct contact. Clang. At the moment, when the pufferfish ghost jumped up, the crisscrossing wires on the ground closed one after another, shrinking the original basin-sized spaces to the size of thumbs. Only the huge blade of Samehuda was stuck in the wire mesh, and it squeaked because of the wire. After all, Maingetsu was a bit slower. If you fall into my net, you can escape for a while, but you can't escape forever, senior. Maingetsu joked with a smile on his face to the sturdy man standing on the petite handle of the knife. Chapter 228 Cracking. What can a mere earth spider seam do to me? The pufferfish ghost stood on the handle of the Samehuda sword, looked at the boy not far away with a mocking look, and said, "Don't forget, I'm one of the 7 ninja swordsmen. I know more about the coordinated moves of the other 6 swords than you do." As he said this, he gathered his chakra into his mouth, and quickly flipped his fingers, to form a set of hand seals. Water style, great waterfall technique. He opened his mouth and spit out a blue torrent, which was turbulent and quickly spread to the surroundings. But his purpose was not to use this water to attack his opponent, but to fill the venue, and create a place for himself. Accompanied by the sound of rushing water, it didn't take long for the torrent he spit out to completely submerge the area of nearly 100 meters. The surging water didn't stop until it was above his feet. The wire mesh made by Manzuki Kizuki was indeed very tricky, but the layout of the wire mesh still needed to be pulled by various fulcrums, which was restricted by the terrain environment. Now, he used a large amount of water to fill the field, raising the battlefield out of thin air. It was difficult to find a fulcrum for the wire mesh on the water surface. Even if there were a few building ruins that emerged from the water, they were far from enough to be used as fulcrums to set up a wire mesh. As for the wire mesh under the water, he used chakra to walk on the water. As long as he was careful not to fall into the water, there was no threat at all. On the other side, seeing the puffer ghost spitting rapids, Manu didn't understand at first, until he saw the wire mesh on the ground was completely submerged in the water. He suddenly realized, it's worthy of being a guy who has been famous for many years. He easily broke this trick. Manu sighed. He thought that, even if this wire mesh couldn't take down the watermelon mountain puffer ghost, it could still make him suffer, but he didn't know that it was broken in the blink of an eye. Helplessly, he had to cut off the wire at the end of the needle. As for the wire mesh under the water, he didn't take it back, and it was still there. With the water transformation technique, those wire meshes could not hurt him by mistake. Instead, they would make the puffer ghost more afraid. It was better to spare a little energy during the fight. Then, he took out the contract scroll from his pocket. After quickly sealing the long sword and needle back into the scroll, he used the summoning technique again to summon the sinking Daoki to the scroll. The area of 100 meters had been submerged by the water of the puffer ghost. Under such conditions of losing the terrain, it was meaningless to use the sewing needle. Because the biggest feature of the sewing needle is that it can weave a wire trap according to the complex terrain and strangle one opponent after another. It just so happened that Manu's opponent at this time was a ninja swordsman who was good at swordsmanship. It was extremely stupid to fight with the sewing needle, which was not suitable for head-on confrontation. It was better to use the powerful Daoki, which could better play the characteristics of his liquid body that was not afraid of physical attacks. Looking at the boy who retrieved the Kabuto Wary from the opposite side, the pufferfish ghost bent down and picked up the underwater Samehada and whispered sarcastically, "You are indeed very good at controlling the Kabuto Wary, but compared with my Samehada, there is still some gap. Although I didn't absorb all your chakra in the previous attack, I at least absorbed a quarter of your chakra. You will lose if you are cut by my Samehada 3 more times." Hearing this, Manu said meaningfully, "Who will lose and who will win? Who knows until the end? Perhaps, before you cut the 3rd time, I have already defeated you, senior." The seeds of victory are sprouting, and he has a hunch that the time is coming soon. The watermelon mountain pufferfish ghost no longer has the opportunity to cut him for the 3rd time. "Humph. You ungrateful kid." The pufferfish ghost snorted coldly and rushed over again with Samehada. He thought that he could use this to make Mainjutsu Kizuki give up, not let the other party lose too badly, and save face for the Kizuki clan. But who knew that this kid didn't appreciate it at all. It really made him angry. Then, the two of them started a dazzling swordsmanship competition again. On the other side, Yagura, who was wandering aimlessly on the battlefield, ran into 10 Kaguya clan ninjas. "Boss, that kid seems to be the target that the superiors have ordered us to focus on the battlefield," a Kaguya clan member whispered to the leader. Hearing this, the leading Kaguya clan member slowly took out a photo from his pocket, looked at Yagura carefully, and then looked back at the photo in his hand. "Well, that's him." He nodded and waved to the clan members behind him, saying, "Brothers, this kid is here, come on." As soon as the voice fell, Yagura felt a surge of chakra in his body, and sharp bone spurs came out from his elbows, forearms, knees, chest, one after another. At the same time, the 9 Kaguya clan members behind them also grew the same bone spurs. In an instant, 10 normal people turned into 10 human hedgehogs. What a strange guy. How come I have never seen him before? Looking at the changes in the bodies of the 10 people with interest, Yagura muttered to himself while carrying a coral stick. "Be careful, that's the Kaguya clan of the corpse vein." In his heart, the 3 tails reminded him solemnly, and then said, "Because they were expelled from the village a long time ago, it's normal that you don't know. These guys are very good at close combat, and you are not good at physical skills. You should just use the 2nd stage of the tailed beast state and deal with it with brute force." Yagura's physical skills are only slightly better than those of ordinary ninjas, but compared with the Kaguya clan, which is very good at close combat, there is no comparison at all. Although the method of ninjutsu bombing can also deal with these guys with calcium in their heads, Yagura's combat experience is extremely lacking. Once he is approached, the outcome can be decided in an instant. In addition, the corpse veins of the Kaguya clan are extraordinary, and the 1st stage of the tailed beast transformation is simply impossible to block their attacks. It is safer to use the 2nd stage of the tailed beast transformation directly. "Yes, I know." Yagura responded in his heart, and then mobilized the tailed beast chakra to form a layer of materialized black and red shield on the surface of his body. He turned himself into a small 3-tailed appearance again. "Go to hell, kid." The leading Kaguya clan member rushed up and stretched out 10 fingers to Yagura. The rest of the Kaguya clan members behind him followed suit. Corpse vein 10-finger piercing. In an instant, the bone spur missiles shot from the fingertips of 10 Kaguya clan members gathered in front of Yagura into a rain of bone spurs. The speed of the bone spurs burst was extremely fast, and Yagura was hit by the rain of 100 bone spur missiles before he could react. Even with the protection of the thick chakra shield on the surface of his body, he still felt a dull pain in his body where he was shot. In just a moment, he was caught off guard and was flung away by the explosive force of the 100 bone spurs. With a loud bang, he crashed into a nearby building. Kill. Seeing that the attack had hit, the Hyuga clan members were even more eager to fight. They shouted and rushed into the building where Yagura disappeared. Chapter 229 Hardbones. Roar. As soon as the 10 people rushed in, they heard a violent beast roar beside their ears. Then a red light flashed in front of their eyes, and they felt a heavy blow to their chests. They even felt a little difficult to breathe, and their bodies involuntarily shot out. Boom boom boom. Accompanied by 10 violent collisions, the 10 Kaguya clan members crashed into the surrounding buildings like cannonballs, and collapsed the abandoned old house. At the same time, a black and red figure slowly walked out of the building where Yagura disappeared. Aizo, the bones of these guys are too hard, aren't they? Yagura complained to the three tails in his heart. Just as the 10 people rushed into the building, he used the chakra of the three tails to extend the three tails and fan those people out. But he clearly felt that when the tails fanned those people, they did not hit their bodies directly, but were blocked outside by the bone spurs on the surface of the other party. What surprised him even more was that his strength, which was enough to collapse a house, did not break the bone spurs on the bodies of those people. This also resulted in the tail causing very limited damage to those people when it hit them, and the previous attack did not kill those people. The three-tailed beast shook its tail in the sealed space, making the seal chain jingle, and said helplessly, "If not for this, how could I let you use the second stage of the tailed beast directly? These guys are notoriously hard-headed in the ninja world." After saying that, it sighed heavily. On the other side, many members of the Kaguya clan limped out of the ruins of the building and looked at the black and red figure with a little more fear. Although Yagura's previous attack did not break the bone spurs on their bodies, the huge force also caused pain in their internal organs, which was very uncomfortable. "Boss, that kid is a bit prickly. What should we do?" a member of the Kaguya clan asked the leader in a low voice. The leading Hyuga ninja stared at Yagura and said calmly, "What are you afraid of? Our corpse bone veins are indestructible. Everyone come together. One knife per person is enough to cut him into pieces." As he said that, a white bone spur appeared from his slightly trembling palm. "Disperse." With the order, the Hyuga people immediately dispersed and surrounded Yagura completely. However, the shadow of the opponent's previous attack still echoed in their hearts. Everyone was a little afraid. No one took the lead in attacking, but just carefully tested the periphery and looked for opportunities. Everyone couldn't help but get a little impatient. Yagura, who was surrounded in the center, was not nervous at all because he was protected by the chakra coat of the three-tailed beast. Instead, he stayed in place with interest, waiting for them to come to him. Kill. After a long while, someone suddenly shouted, and the Hyuga people attacked together, aiming the bone spurs in their hands at Yagura, and rushed straight up. Bang, bang, bang. Before Yagura could react, he was stabbed with bone spurs from all four directions. The speed of this group of people was much faster than his. Fortunately, although their attack was fierce, it still did not pierce the chakra coat on his body. However, the hard bone spurs stabbing his body still made Yagura feel uncomfortable. "You have already made a move, now it's my turn." Although they could not see the expression on the boy's black and red face, they could still hear the mockery in his tone. Then, everyone saw Yagura use his two black and red claws to move around and immediately fan them out. What's going on? Originally wondering why Yagura's power was so much weaker than before, the Kaguya tribe members immediately found that there was suddenly a layer of strange substance like coral on their chest and abdomen, and it was still spreading around. In an instant, the entire lower body was completely covered, as if petrified, and could no longer move. That was Yagura's coral palm, which can make the victim's body surface grow a layer of coral-like hard material, thereby restricting the opponent's movement. Because he used ninjutsu instead of brute force, Yagura's action of pushing away the crowd just now seemed so weak and powerless. Looking at the anxious people who were restricted and unable to move around, Yagura asked the three-tailed beast curiously in his heart, "Do you think I can break their bones if I use the tailed beast jade?" Hearing this, the three-tailed beast in the sealed space raised his head in astonishment and looked at the top of his head and said, "Are you crazy? You actually want to use the tailed beast jade I taught you here?" The so-called tailed beast jade is a kind of chakra bomb formed by the tailed beasts compressing the yin and yang chakra in a fixed ratio. With this move, they can destroy several mountains in an instant. If it is put on the battlefield, one blow is enough to change the situation of the battle. This is also the reason why the tailed beasts are favored by the major ninja villages and firmly controlled in their hands. Although the fog ninjas have set up a defensive barrier outside the battlefield, the destructive power of the tailed beast jade is too terrifying. Without any preparation outside, if Yagura uses the tailed beast ball, it will cause irreparable disaster if he is not careful. By then, let alone ascending to the position of Mizukage, it will be a question whether he can move freely like now. Hearing the objection of the three-tailed beast, Yagura hurriedly explained, I know what you are worried about. I'm not going to use the tail beast ball with all my strength. But I will use the tail beast ball with a weakened state and control the amount of chakra in it to a small range. Oh, that's okay. The three-tailed beast nodded, breathed a sigh of relief, and reminded, then you must pay attention to controlling the amount of chakra. Don't go too far. Yes, I know. Yagura responded in his heart, and then opened his mouth. Black and white chakra emerged from his body, gathered in front of his mouth, and quickly condensed into a dark chakra ball. It's the tailed beast ball. Seeing the black chakra ball, and sensing the frightening chakra fluctuations in the air, the Hyuga clan ninjas immediately recognized it as the signature technique of the Jinchuriki. However, their lower bodies were covered with a layer of coral-like hard matter, and they couldn't move their legs at all, and they couldn't hide, even if they wanted to. For a moment, everyone was as anxious as ants on a hot pot. Outside the field, the people on the protective wall also saw this scene. But some were happy, and some were worried. Third generation, Yagura even used the tailed beast ball. I'm afraid he has been controlled by the will of the tailed beast, and has gone berserk. Someone said anxiously to the Mizukage. Yagura became a Jinchuriki in too short a time. No matter what, they couldn't believe that Yagura learned to control the power of the tailed beast in such a short time, and also learned this terrifying ultimate move of the Jinchuriki. Third generation, we should immediately send someone to suppress Yagura and end this battle. Someone followed and echoed. Compared with the battle for the Mizukage, they were more worried about the three-tailed beast in Yagura's body going berserk. Don't worry, he has already learned the tailed beast ball. It's not the three tails who is controlling it. The Sandaime said to everyone calmly. With the help of the three tails, learning the tailed beast ball is just a piece of cake for Yagura. Compared with the other Jinchuriki who need to learn by themselves, it is much more convenient. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 230 Beam. Seeing the third Hokage so calm, everyone stopped talking. However, they had a vague feeling that this Three Tails Jinchuriki was different from the previous ones. Goji Yagura's control over the Three Tails was too strong. On the battlefield, seeing that the chakra ball in front of Yagura had changed from the size of a soybean to the size of a fist, and there was a trend of continuing to grow, many Kaguya clan members trapped by the coral palm became more and more anxious. However, the hardened coral on the body was extremely hard, and even with the bone blades in their hands, it was very difficult to pry it up, and it was impossible to untie it for a while. Everyone was very worried. Suddenly, someone seemed to have thought of something and shouted loudly, "Quick, use bones to create a layer of protection." Hearing this, everyone's eyes lit up, as if they had grabbed a life-saving straw. No longer trying to pry open the coral layer with the bone blades in their hands, they used the blood limit of activating the corpse bone vein to stimulate the growth of bones throughout the body and create a layer of fine bone membrane under the skin. Although they were not sure whether their own corpse bone veins could block the Jinchuriki's tailed beast ball, at least, with the bone protection made by the corpse bone veins, they had a slight chance of survival. Even more, they felt in their hearts that their own corpse bone veins should be able to block the tailed beast ball, because they had never seen anyone break their bone spurs. No one doubted that the bone made by the corpse bone veins was not the hardest substance. Then, the protective layer made by the corpse bone veins should also be the strongest protection. Their corpse bone veins are the strongest bloodline limit. On the other side, seeing that the chakra ball in front of Yagura was already the size of a bowl, the three-tailed beast hurriedly reminded in his heart, "Enough, enough. If you accumulate chakra again, the barrier outside may not be able to hold up. You are too nervous." Yagura vented his dissatisfaction in his heart. Despite this, he still stopped accumulating chakra according to the reminder of the three-tailed beast, and swallowed the chakra ball in front of him. Just as everyone was puzzled, Yagura opened his mouth slightly. A red light suddenly shot out from his mouth, extending hundreds of meters, and shot to the defense barrier outside, making the barrier's light curtain flicker. The fog ninjas and the audience who were maintaining the barrier outside were frightened. Then, everyone saw Yagura holding a lightsaber in his mouth, spinning suddenly in place, and the long beam swept across the battlefield in an instant, and then dissipated in his mouth. In an instant, all the buildings within a radius of hundreds of meters collapsed. In a loud explosion, the edge of the battlefield, where the beam swung to, was drowned by a dazzling fire, and completely turned into ashes. With Yagura as the center, the battlefield within a radius of hundreds of meters was once again flattened. And the 10 Kaguya people in front of him were also cut in half at the moment the beam swept through. On the upper half of the body, you can still clearly see their unwillingness and fear before death. Their proud corpse veins did not give them a chance to survive. Even when the tail beast ball swept past, the bone protective layer did not even block the opponent for a moment. It was just like paper, and it did not play any role at all. After putting away the black and red chakra coat on his body, Yagura walked over to check. Looking at the charred bone spurs on the opponent's body, he said with a little disappointment, "It seems that their bones are not as hard as imagined." In order to prevent the defense barrier from being damaged, he gathered the power of the tail beast ball into light in his mouth. Compared with throwing it directly, the power was much weaker. Even so, the seemingly hard bones of these Kaguya people still could not block his tail beast ball beam. It was just like cutting tofu, without any difficulty. This made him a little disappointed. He felt that Izo was overestimating these people. Hearing that, Yagura felt too relaxed. The three tails in the sealed space excitedly fanned its tail and shouted, "What do you think the move I taught you was? That's the tail beast ball. It's our ultimate secret. There are not many guys in the entire ninja world who can withstand this move. How can these few trash guys possibly block my tail beast ball? How is it possible?" Seeing that the three tails in the sealed space was very excited, Yagura hurriedly comforted him. Okay, don't get excited. I just think that the corpse bone vein is a bit unworthy of its name. Not that the tail beast ball you taught me is not good. You actually compared my tail beast ball with that broken tail beast ball. Is there any need to compare? Of course my tail beast ball is stronger. The three tails continued to argue in his heart. Okay, I know. The tail beast ball is the strongest. The tail beast ball is the strongest. Now it's done. Unable to bear the annoyance, Yagura retrieved the coral stick that had fallen to the side and replied impatiently. After looking around and finding a dead silence, he asked in surprise, "Why is there no movement nearby? If there is really movement, then there is a ghost." In his heart, Sanwei replied angrily. Yagura was a little confused. Sanwei explained helplessly, "The tail beast ball beam you just used swept a radius of hundreds of meters. Although the power was greatly weakened, it is not something that ordinary people can resist. At this moment, there are no living people within the defense of hundreds of meters." Earlier, although Yagura's big tsunami had a wide range, the direct killing power was not very strong. Most people were just knocked unconscious or seriously injured. Not many people were actually killed by the tsunami, but this tail beast ball beam is different. Even the corpse veins of the Kaguya clan couldn't stop it, let alone others. In addition, Yagura's attack had a wide range, was very fast, and had no signs. The beam was indestructible wherever it went, and many people were killed by the beam without realizing what was happening. This also led to the death of all the mist ninjas within the defense range of hundreds of meters, without a single survivor. According to Sanwei's estimation, Yagura's attack just now wiped out a quarter of the mist ninjas on the entire battlefield, plus the unlucky ones who were cleared out by the tsunami before. In the entire battle for the Mizukage, nearly half of the mist ninjas were eliminated by Yagura. What? Hearing this shocking news, Yagura was also shocked. Although he didn't know how many people were within a radius of hundreds of meters, it would not be less than 100. You know, he has never killed so many people in his life, not to mention that it was all at once. I'm afraid that the number of people he killed before was not even a fraction of today's. Thinking of this, his hand holding the coral stick couldn't help but tremble. How could this happen? He muttered to himself while looking at his beloved coral stick. Although it was not his intention to kill those people, he inadvertently wiped out everyone within a radius of hundreds of meters. He didn't even recognize himself. At this moment, he finally realized clearly what a terrible existence the so-called Jinkriki is. Except for those who can cheat, there is really no one who can take the tailed beast ball. Chapter 231 Exit. Are you scared? Sensing the fear in Yagura's heart, the three-tailed beast asked tentatively. Yagura did not answer, but just stared at his hands, motionless. This time, he killed too many people. So many that even he was a little afraid of himself. Seeing that the boy did not respond, the three-tailed beast continued, you don't have to blame yourself for those guys. Death is the end of all life. From the moment they entered this battlefield, they were ready to die. Besides, their death is not in vain, because they will pave the way for you to become the Mizukage. What you should do, is step on their corpses, and ascend to the Mizukage. After hearing its words, the boy finally responded. But, I'm really too scary like this. I can kill so many people casually. Yagura replied timidly in his heart. If you don't want to kill too many people, don't use the tailed beast jade casually. The three-tailed beast raised his head and said to the top of the sealed space. But, then again, the blow you just made was visible to anyone who is not blind. In this situation, there should be few people who dare to stay on the battlefield. Sanwei added. That's good, that's good. Yagura breathed a sigh of relief. Noticing that the boy's mood was gradually stabilizing, Sanwei reminded him, now, a large part of the people left on the battlefield are in the west. You can go there directly and end this battle completely. With its perception ability, the entire battlefield cannot escape its search range. The current situation of the battle is clear in mind. Yeah. Yagura nodded, put his mood in order, picked up the coral stick, and slowly went west. Just as Sanwei said to Yagura, Yagura's earth-shattering blow shocked everyone, and shattered the fantasies of most people. Faced with that kind of destructive power, they felt a deep despair. Unable to compete, unable to resist. What was that just now? Someone asked in horror, looking at the scorched land left by the explosion. No, I don't know. It's too scary. The companion next to him was already incoherent, his legs shaking. He dared to swear that he had never seen such a terrible attack in his life. With just one strike, the area of hundreds of meters was razed to the ground. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he would not have believed that someone could cause such a horrible effect. It should be the Three-Tails Jinchuriki who did it. Apart from him, there is no one else. Someone thought of Yagura who participated in the battle for the Mizukage. In his impression, only the Jinchuriki could create such an attack. Someone came out from inside. Someone climbed up to a high place and looked at that area and found a figure coming out from inside. It's Yagura. Goji. The horrible attack just now should be caused by him. After seeing the man's appearance clearly, he replied in horror. Under that kind of attack, except for the caster, there was no way anyone else in that area was alive. Therefore, he determined that the source of the horrible attack just now was Yagura. Goji. It must be. Everyone was terrified. They had only heard about the terror of Jinchuriki, but they had never seen it with their own eyes. Now, they had learned a lot. What are we still fighting for? With his level of attack, if he hits us twice more, how many of us can survive? I'm not playing anymore. The mist ninja who participated in the assessment spat fiercely and walked to the edge of the battlefield without looking back. This level of battle is simply not something that ordinary people can participate in. Instead of staying here and being mowed down, it is better to leave as soon as possible. Fear and despair are spreading. Once there is one, there will be two. If one person quits, there will be a second person, and the third person will quit as well. I don't want to fight anymore. I quit. Wait for me. I quit too. One after another, people threw away their weapons and walked to the edge of the battlefield. Seeing more and more people leaving, Nana Shuan whispered to the girl next to her, let's go too. You saw that attack just now. It was too terrifying. But here. Mediterumi looked back at the two pufferfish ghosts who were still fighting fiercely not far away. The horrific battle wave just now seemed to have no effect on them at all. The two of them continued to fight back and forth without any relaxation. It was really hard for her to miss such a wonderful battle. Although she could watch the battle outside, it was far less exciting than watching it from such a close distance. Don't say but. Qishuang took her little hand and walked straight out and said, we were lucky just now. We were not within the attack range of that beam. When Gaoju Yagura comes over and shoots again, we won't be so lucky. He valued his and Ming's lives more than anything else. Earlier, he thought that, as long as they stayed away from Yagura, there would be no danger. Now it seems that he was too optimistic. Take the attack just now for example. If they hadn't left the maximum attack range of the beam, they might not even know how they died. If they were in it, whether they could block it or not was not the case for the time being. The indiscriminate attack that was out of sight was too sudden. No one would have thought that they would suddenly encounter an inexplicable attack. Being caught off guard, they didn't even have time to dodge, let alone prepare for defense. Therefore, it would be wiser to leave this dangerous place as soon as possible. As for the rest, they were all trivial matters. Knowing everything that Ninashiro said, Terumi Mei didn't struggle and was dragged to the battlefield barrier by him. On the other side, Zigguration Puffer Ghost and Hazuki Maingetsu, who were fighting fiercely, also discovered the huge battle fluctuations not far away. They also guessed that it was the work of the three-tailed Jinkriki, but neither of them had any intention of stopping en truce, because they who aspired to the position of Mizukage had already decided on a way to deal with Yaguragoji. Therefore, facing the terrifying attack of the Jinkriki, they did not have the slightest fear or tension. Wow. The Puffer Ghost once again found a flaw and used Samehuda to cut Maingetsu in two. As expected, Maingetsu once again liquefied his body and escaped. Took cuts already. He held up Samehuda and pointed at Maingetsu Hazuki, who had transformed into a human form not far away, and said proudly, "Only one cut is left, and I can drain your chakra, leaving your water transformation technique no longer in use." Earlier, taking advantage of Maingetsu Hazuki's distraction from Yagura's terrifying attack, he slashed at him. Combined with the previous cut and the previous one, Maingetsu Hazuki's chakra was less than a quarter left. With just one last cut, he could completely get rid of this troublesome little ghost. Really? Maingetsu Hazuki looked at him mockingly and said meaningfully, "Unfortunately, senior, you don't have the chance to cut the third cut. Originally, I wanted to let Nana Frost enter the scene to add some drama, but in the end I found that I couldn't add any more, so I just let him be a supporting role and leave directly." Chapter 232 Layout. What? Pufferfish Ghost was confused. The other party looked confident and didn't seem to be joking, but he couldn't guess what the boy in front of him was planning. Manu took out the contract scroll again, and while making a seal, he said, "You have always been curious about why I didn't use Feniemo and Flat? Now, let me tell you." Spiritual summoning technique. Bang. With a puff of white smoke rising from the scroll, a square and pillar-like blade appeared in front of Manu. If someone looked closely, they could see that on one side of the blade, there was a layer of white paper attached to it, and a layer of dense detonating talismans were engraved on the white paper. It was Explosive Sword Feniemo, one of the 7 ninja swords. Feniemo has the power to create detonating talismans. As long as the talisman paper for making detonating talismans is not used up, the holder can use Feniemo to continuously create detonating talismans. And using the talisman paper attached to the blade, he launched an explosive attack on the opponent. "I used Femo to bury 1 million detonating talismans around here. You have no way to escape." Zigguration Puffer Ghost. Holding the hilt of the knife, Manu pointed at the man who looked like a meatball and shouted loudly. As early as the beginning of the two people's fight, when he was cut by Samehuda for the first time and liquefied deep into the ground, in addition to taking out the sewing needle to sneak attack the opponent, he also did one thing. He transformed into an avatar and let the avatar carry Femo to create detonating talismans underground and bury them around the battlefield. The formation formed by these 1 million detonating talismans was the last link in his layout to kill Puffer Ghost. Long before the war, he clearly understood that, even if he had an extraordinary talent for swordsmanship and could skillfully operate 4 ninja swords in a short time, he was still a step behind Zigguration Puffer Ghost, a ninja sword user who had been famous for more than 10 years. He could not possibly beat the opponent in swordsmanship, and the ninjutsu methods were limited by the opponent's Samehuda, so he could only think of another way. The steel wire used for sewing needles can just restrain the effect of Samehuda's absorption of chakra. If the opponent can be bound by steel wire, the winner can be decided immediately. but his swordsmanship is not as good as the opponent's, and he can't take advantage of sewing needles, which are not good at close combat. He finally found an opportunity to lay a steel wire trap, but it was cracked by the opponent's water escape. Fortunately, he made 2 preparations and let the clone take Fimo to set up an additional 1 million detonating talismans underground. He just lost his mind and was stabbed by Samehada because the clone released the technique after arranging the detonating talisman and suddenly fed back the information, which impacted his mental brain area, which caused him to lose his mind and reveal a flaw, and he was stabbed. However, it doesn't matter. When receiving the feedback information from the clone, it means that the overall situation has been decided. He won. Although Samehada has the power to absorb chakra, the power generated by the explosion of the detonating talisman is not within the scope of its absorption. The formation of 1 million explosive talismans completely covered an area of nearly 1,000 meters in radius. It was impossible for the pufferfish ghost to escape from this range with the instant body technique. The opponent had no choice but to withstand the explosion of 1 million explosive talismans. As for himself, he had the water transformation technique to dissipate the impact of the explosion, so he didn't have to worry about his safety. What? Hearing Manu's words, the pufferfish ghost was angry and anxious. He was the 7 ninja swordsman of the Hidden Mist Village and the current top master of the Hidden Mist Village, but he was actually tricked by a little boy and fell into the trap of the explosive talisman formation. When he thought of the 1 million explosive talismans buried under his feet, he couldn't help but feel a tingling sensation on his scalp. 1 million explosive talismans, that's a full 1 million. In his decades of life, he had never seen so many explosive talismans at once. Once all of them were detonated, I'm afraid that the people in the center of the explosion would die without a trace left. Although he didn't know the distribution range of these explosive talismans, he knew in his heart that the opponent would definitely not leave him a chance to escape from the explosion area. Therefore, the moment he heard the news, he immediately gave up the idea of escaping in an instant. Then, he frantically flipped his fingers, changed hand seals, and poured chakra into the water under his feet. He was ready to perform ninjutsu to resist the impending explosion. It's useless. 1 million detonating talismans, you can't block it at all. Seeing the other party's anxious seal, Manu of Hazuki showed a smug smile. He made a hand seal in front of his chest with one hand, hooked the chakra reserved by the clone on the detonating talisman underground, and shouted softly, "Explode. Water style, water array wall." At the moment Manu activated the detonating talisman, the ninjutsu of the puffer ghost was also ready. I saw the water under his feet rolling back and gathering into a large blue bowl, which trapped him upside down in it. At the same time, the mist ninjas at the edge of the battlefield noticed a violent wave coming from their feet, like an earthquake. Then, everyone heard a series of deafening explosions coming from underground. Looking closely, he saw that on the battlefield between Gui Deng Manu and Gui Deng Manu, mud and water were flying up into the sky, as if a sun had been dug out from the ground. The dazzling firelight turned the entire battlefield red. The impact of the explosion was devastating, and all the buildings within a radius of hundreds of meters collapsed. Stones and wood chips were swept away by the shockwave. Whoosh! The shockwave turned into a strong wind and reached everyone in the blink of an eye. Many people did not stand firmly and were immediately blown away, like rolling goods, and they were seen rolling far away. The rest of the people used various means. Some hid in the ground, some used magic to resist, and some looked for cover. Ice escape ice wall. Qishuang also quickly performed ninjutsu, condensing a 3-foot thick ice wall in front of her, protecting herself and Terumi Mei behind. Boom boom boom. Hearing the sound of a lot of random objects hitting the ice wall, Terumi asked loudly, "What happened? How did such a violent explosion suddenly occur?" Even though she was more than 1,000 meters away and hiding behind the ice wall, she could still feel the heat waves of the explosion, as if even her hair was about to be singed. "I don't know." Qishuang shook her head and replied loudly, "The explosion came from the battlefield over there at Ziguishan Puffer Ghost. It must have something to do with them." Even though he had been on the battlefield for so many years, it was the first time he had seen such a violent explosion. Judging from the explosion wave that had such a strong impact at such a distance, there must be at least tens of thousands of detonating talismans detonated at this moment. As for how many there were, he didn't dare to think at all. How many detonating talismans were needed to form the terrifying flames like a small sun? If a person's body was exposed to it, he would be vaporized in an instant. He even doubted whether the two people at the center of the explosion could still survive. On the other side, Yagira, who was leisurely heading west, also noticed the fire that looked like a small sun. Hey, these guys are quite capable. Looking at the small sun, he pinched his chin and was amazed. Originally I wanted to say 100,000 detonating talismans, but later I felt that it was too little and not impressive enough, so I changed it to 1 million. If the direct explosion range is 1000 square meters, there are probably only 1000 detonating talismans per square meter. Compared with Conan's 300 billion detonating talismans, it is still far behind. Chapter 233 Destruction. At this time, the Watermelon Mountain Puffer Ghost, who was at the center of the explosion on the battlefield, had his eyes bulging because he was being devastated by the explosion of 1 million detonating talismans. I must block it. I must block it. I must block it. I'm going to become the 4th generation of Mizukage. How can I lose to such a little ghost? He shouted to cheer himself up, while desperately outputting chakra to strengthen the defense of the water array wall. However, the explosion of the 1 million detonating talismans was too terrifying. No matter how much chakra he injected to create water, it felt that it could not keep up with the speed of the water curtain being vaporized by high temperature. In the blink of an eye, the more than 3 meter thick water curtain barrier outside was reduced to about 1 meter. As the water curtain barrier became thinner, the impact of the explosion outside seemed to become more violent. Boom. The water curtain barrier exploded under the shock of the terrifying explosion and the scorching heat. No, with a terrified scream, the round and tall figure of the puffer ghost was completely submerged in the flames. Outside the battlefield, seeing the flames rising into the sky, everyone was completely stunned. The doomsday scene, that looked like a volcanic eruption and the sun falling, was deeply engraved in everyone's mind. It can't be stopped. The Watermelon Mountain Puffer Ghost can't be stopped. He lost. Everyone came to a common conclusion. Although most people regarded this only 7 ninja swordsman as the best master of the Kirigakure village, and believed that he would sweep away all enemies and ascend to the position of Mizukage, they still had to admit such an unwilling and unexpected result. The Watermelon Mountain Puffer Ghost was defeated by a young genius from the Kid family, a boy who can control multiple ninja swords, a child prodigy who uses ninja swords. A new star has risen in the Kirigakure village. As the myth of the 7 ninja swordsmen was shattered before their eyes, everyone had to start facing up to a problem that they had selectively forgotten. In this war, the 7 ninja swordsmen were wiped out by a Konoha ninja. Although the top leaders of Kirigakure tried their best to conceal the truth about the death of 4 ninja swordsmen including Takusa and Yito, there were too many people who witnessed this scene that night. The news that the invincible 7 ninja swordsmen were wiped out by an unknown Konoha ninja spread like wildfire. But such news was too bizarre for the Kirigakure ninjas and the general public who did not participate in the surprise attack on Konoha that night. It was simply a fantasy. Therefore, they did not believe such rumors and were more willing to believe that the 7 ninja swordsmen were tricked by Konoha, like the 3rd Raikage, and were besieged and killed by many Konoha ninjas. For this reason, many people have woven a heroic image of the sacrificed ninja swordsman who died in battle. Such a reversal, on the contrary, made the top leaders feel relieved, and they no longer racked their brains to find ways to cover up the truth about the annihilation of the 7 people. The face of Kirigakure was also saved. But now, main Jetsukizuki defeated the famous Ziguishin Puffer Demon as a teenager, breaking the myth of the invincibility of the 7 ninja swordsmen. Let people finally realize that ninja swordsmen are not invincible. They can also be defeated. Then the previous legend that the 7 ninja swordsmen were wiped out by an unknown Konoha ninja is not impossible. Realizing this, everyone couldn't help but feel heavy and uncomfortable. On the protective wall, someone had already congratulated the head of the Hazuki clan. Congratulations, congratulations. Even the pufferfish demon was defeated. It seems that the position of Mizukage this time will fall to your Hazuki family. Hazuki Manayu is really a prodigy that only appears once in 100 years in the Hidden Mist Village. Your Hazuki clan has made a fortune. Seeing everyone's congratulations, the head of the Hazuki clan replied very humbly, "You are too early to be happy. Manayu just took advantage of the trick to win the pufferfish demon. There are still candidates for Mizukage recommended by the 3rd generation Mizukage and many Mist ninjas who are undergoing assessments. Let's wait and see." Although he said it very humbly, everyone still saw the joy that could not be concealed between his brows. For a big family like this, the battle for the position of Mizukage is enough to defeat those powerful competitors. As for the other examinees, there is no need to be too serious. After all, it is not easy to kill everyone to surrender with personal force. Generally speaking, these examinees have a candidate for Mizukage that they support. They will attack other competitors for their own candidate for Mizukage, not just to test the strength of the next Mizukage. As long as they defeat their supporting candidates, they will have no motivation to act. Then, by promising benefits and getting their approval, unnecessary battles can be avoided. Apart from these guys with other purposes, there are very few people who really want to test the new Mizukage and participate in the battle for Mizukage. Now, Manu defeated Zigwish and Puffer Ghost. Then, the huge examinees on the battlefield, who belong to the Puffer Ghost side, will have the possibility of negotiation. This alone is equivalent to eliminating nearly 1/3 of the examinees on the battlefield. After all, this time the most people support the Puffer Ghost. Among the remaining examinees, in addition to the examinees from their department, there are also people from the 3rd Mizukage's department, and some neutral people who are trying to disrupt the situation. There are not too many real opponents. As long as they wait until Maingetsu defeats Yagura, the entire battle for Mizukage can be completely settled. On the battlefield, when the impact of the explosion completely stopped, Qishuang withdrew the ice wall barrier. Looking at the large pit with a radius of hundreds of meters not far away, Terumi Mei covered her mouth and exclaimed, "What a terrible explosion. Who did it? It should be Maingetsu." Qishuang replied solemnly, "How is it possible?" Terumi Mei was confused. "I heard the explosion of the detonating talisman earlier." Looking at the smoke and dust at the center of the explosion, Qishuang pinched her chin and said slowly, "Although the explosion was extremely dense, I still heard that it was caused by the superposition of many detonating talismans. But, to cause such a violent explosion, at least tens of thousands of detonating talismans must be used. Who would carry so many detonating talismans on their body for no reason?" Terumi Mei shook her head. "You forgot the explosive blade Feniemo in Maingetsu's hand." Qishuang glanced at her and continued, "Feniemo has the ability to create detonating talismans. Maingetsu can use Feniemo to create countless detonating talismans and bury them around to defeat the Puffer Ghost in one fell swoop. Moreover, before the explosion, Maingetsu held Feniemo in his hand. That is definitely not a coincidence." Although he couldn't guess the specific process of Maingetsu's arrangement of the explosion, Qishuang could still be sure that Maingetsu must have created this earth-shattering explosion. So, Terumi thought of an incredible result. Yes, it was the Watermelon Mountain Puffer Ghost who was defeated. Qishuang nodded. With such a powerful explosion, the Puffer Ghost could not be safe and sound. Even if he didn't die, he would not have the strength to fight again. However, he never thought that the arrogant Watermelon Mountain Puffer Ghost would be defeated by Maingetsu. Chapter 234. Finally, you know, Maingetsu Hazuki is about the same age as them. He and Ming only managed to hold out for one move against the Watermelon Mountain Puffer Demon, but he had already beaten the Puffer Demon down. The difference between them is huge. Although there is a suspicion that the opponent used the water transformation technique and explosive sword flying foam to take advantage. But the fact that Maingetsu Hazuki defeated the Puffer Demon is irrefutable. This is a tactical victory. This is also a kind of strength. Just like when he took advantage of Obito. Despite this, Maingetsu Hazuki's swordsmanship ability is enough to crush their peers. They are not at the same level at all. This is a true child of destiny. At this time, Qishuang noticed a young man walking slowly from the other end of the battlefield, carrying a stick-like weapon. He had brown hair and a suture-like scar on his left lower eyelid that spread to his chin. He recognized it at a glance. It was Kirigakure. Let's go, that dangerous guy is here. Pulling Terumi's hand, Qishuang hurried to the battlefield barrier. Although the two sides were still more than 200 meters apart, this still did not give him a sense of security. The opponent's previous beam-shaped attack was too terrifying. Is that the three-tails Jinchuriki? The girl he was holding turned her head and asked. Since returning to the village, Yagura has been confined by the third generation. Not many people have seen him, and Terumi has only heard of him, but never seen him. Therefore, he did not know him. Yes, that's him. Qishuang nodded, holding the girl's hand, and said without turning back. It doesn't look like he is very powerful, does it? Terumi glanced back again. Hearing this, Qishuang replied with a smile. A person's strength is not determined by his appearance. If not, how could the watermelon mountain pufferfish ghost be defeated by the ghost lantern mainjetsu? Yagura is not very old, looks about the same as them, and has a harmless face. If you underestimate him for this reason, then he will end up like those guys who died in the beam attack, and become a cold corpse on the battlefield. Soon, the two of them left the battlefield along with many other Mist Ninjas who had lost their will to fight. On the battlefield, the Mist Ninjas of the Pufferfish Demon clan soon found the unconscious Watermelon Mountain Pufferfish Demon in a pile of sand. His whole body was burnt black, as if he had been thrown into a furnace and roasted, and a faint smell of meat could be smelled. If they hadn't detected a faint breath from him, everyone would have thought he was dead. I didn't expect that Master Pufferfish Demon could survive such a violent explosion head-on. It's really amazing. Someone exclaimed in admiration. No matter what others said, their loyalty to Master Pufferfish Demon would not waver in the slightest. Master is seriously injured, and can no longer compete for the position of Mizukage. Let's take him out quickly. Someone suggested solemnly. Yes. We have to take Master out for treatment quickly. The others nodded. At this moment, a very young voice came from the side. He can go, but Samehuda has to stay. This sudden voice startled the Mist Ninjas, and they hurriedly searched around, only to find that not far away there was a stream of clear water rising from the ground, slowly manifesting a human figure. It's Mainjetsu Kizuki. Before the human figure was completely solidified, someone immediately recognized the identity of the man. Hearing this name, the Mist Ninjas were very nervous. Despite this, they still took out their kunai and blocked Mainjetsu Kizuki. Block the genius boy who defeated the Fugu demon. You can take him away, but Samehuda has to stay. Mainjetsu said expressionlessly. There are many people behind Fugu demon. If that guy was blown to death by him at the beginning, it would be fine. But now that he is not dead, he is happy to let him go, sell a favor, and win the support of the people behind him, which is also a good deal. After all, with Fugu Demon's current state, it is impossible for him to compete with him for the position of Mizukage. Letting him go or not will not affect the overall situation. After hearing his words, the Mist Ninjas looked at each other, not daring to make a decision on their own. They knew better than anyone what Samehuda meant to Fuguki. If Fuguki woke up and found that Samehuda was gone, what awaited them would be a more miserable result than death. Don't break the rules of the Hidden Mist Village. Seeing that everyone was hesitant, Mainjetsu Kizuna shouted and continued, only the winner is qualified to hold the ninja sword. If you don't get out of the way, I can only kill you all. As he said that, he took out the contract scroll from his pocket and opened it directly. A white smoke rose, and a 3-foot-long large sewing needle appeared in everyone's eyes. That was the long sword sewing needle. Let's go. Seeing that he was about to take action, the Mist Ninjas no longer insisted, and immediately took the Samehuda from Fuguki's hand, and threw it over. Then he carried Fuguki's body and quickly disappeared from the battlefield. Catching the Samehuda they threw at him, Manu was overjoyed, and couldn't help laughing. Samehuda, Samehuda. I finally got you. Ha ha ha, cough cough. The laughter stopped abruptly. Samehuda fell to the ground. Manu coughed violently, and slowly knelt down. The power of these 1 million detonating talismans really can't be underestimated. He laughed at himself. The 1 million detonating talismans were a double-edged sword. They defeated the pufferfish ghost, but also injured him. He thought that he could defeat the pufferfish ghost unscathed by relying on his liquid body to ignore all the explosion impacts. but he ignored the high temperature of the superposition of 1 million detonating talismans. He could bear 100, 1000, and 10,000. But 1 million was beyond his limit. Although the temperature generated by each detonating talisman was very limited, the high temperature generated by the superposition of 1 million was enough to vaporize steel. But at that time, he ignored the superimposed high temperature and only relied on his liquid body to resist. In just a moment, his internal organs were burned by the high temperature generated by the explosion. In order to resist the damage, he almost consumed all his chakra. Otherwise, he would not have been so polite to the group of mist ninjas just now, and would have directly taken Samehada and been done with it. Not far away, a mist ninja from the 3rd Mizukage's department discovered this situation. "That kid is injured, let's go." He winked at his companions around him, and immediately led them to rush over. Their attack did not hide from main Jetsukizuki, who had been paying attention to the surrounding situation. He sneered and said sarcastically, "Do you really think that I have never defended against you?" Then, he quickly formed a few hand seals, gathered the only chakra in his palm, and then pressed it to the ground. Longsword Ninja Technique Earth Spider Seam. Chapter 235 Recognition. Because he was seriously injured, and his chakra was almost exhausted. In order to ensure his own safety, before Manu appeared, he secretly used the wire of sewing needles to lay wire traps around him. Fortunately, manipulating these objects does not consume much chakra, so he is not completely powerless to fight back. He pressed down with his palm, and a large wire net suddenly rose within a radius of 10 meters. The group of mist ninjas who tried to take him down were immediately trapped in the crisscrossing steel net. However, ninjas are a group of sharp-eyed and sharp-eared people. At the moment when the wire net rose, most people avoided direct contact with the wire. However, there were still a few unlucky ones who rushed too fast and did not completely avoid the suddenly rising wire net. They accidentally stepped on it. In just a moment, the sole of the foot that stepped on the wire was split in two. The sole of the foot was suddenly seriously injured, and the mist ninja lost his balance in pain and fell to the ground. Crack. The scream came suddenly, and the fallen mist ninja was immediately broken into several pieces and was dismembered by the crisscrossing steel wires on the ground. For a moment, blood flowed all over the ground, which was horrible to look at and frightened the people nearby. "Don't move. This is the steel wire for sewing needles, which has extremely strong cutting ability." Someone recognized the source of the extremely sharp steel wire and immediately reminded everyone loudly. "Unfortunately, you know it too late." Kitten Mang sneered and changed his hand seals again. Collect. Under the control of his chakra, the sparse steel wire net suddenly shrank. The grid space that was originally more than enough for 2 people to stand was immediately reduced to the size of a fist. Those mist ninjas standing in the empty space had their legs cut off immediately and fell to the ground screaming. Ahem. Ignoring the people rolling in pain on the ground, Manu coughed twice and slowly put away the sewing needles and the contract scroll. Then, he set his eyes on the grey-black strange sword with barbs and sharp teeth next to him. Samehada. He stretched his hand to the handle of the sword, but suddenly several barbs grew on the handle and pierced his palm. Fortunately, he had the water transformation technique to protect himself, and the barbs did not actually hurt him. Despite this, his palm still tightly grasped the handle of Samehada. "Don't be nervous, don't be nervous." He input his chakra into Samehada and expressed his friendly goodwill through the mental power contained in the chakra, trying to appease Samehada's emotions and gain Samehada's recognition. You know, among the 7 ninja swords, Samehada is the most unique one because it has real life. It is a complete living body, not a purely dead object. Therefore, the user of Samehada not only needs to be able to control Samehada flexibly, but also needs to obtain the real recognition of Samehada. Otherwise, Samehada will reject the user and not cooperate at all, and controlling Samehada will become an empty talk. Fortunately, although Samehada has life, it does not have complex thinking ability, only some simple instincts. It is like a small pet. As long as the holder's chakra suits its taste and a certain amount of food is put in, it can get the recognition of this small pet. According to the records of the 7 ninja swords of the Hazuki family, Samehada prefers water attribute chakra. Water style ninjas are most likely to gain the initial recognition of Samehada. and their Hazuki clan, based on their special physique, developed the water transformation technique, which can be said to be a natural water style ninja. It is exactly the type that Sumehada loves. Therefore, there are also many Hazuki clan members among the former users of Sumehada. This is also one of the reasons why Manu was full of confidence and dared to seize Sumehada on the spot. It is really easy for the Hazuki clan to gain the recognition of Sumehada. Sensing the familiar water attribute chakra power, Sumehada's nervous mood was immediately relieved, because it had been exposed to similar chakras many times in the past. Then, the barbs on the handle of Sumehada slowly retracted, and through the contact with the handle, using chakra to feedback, it expressed its love for the new holder. It likes this new holder. It likes the pure water attribute chakra power. Receiving Sumehada's approval, Hazuki Manayu's mouth curled up involuntarily. With you, I feel much more at ease when dealing with the three-tailed Jinchuriki. After stroking the barbs on Sumehada's body a few times, he slowly stood up and walked over to the people who were seriously injured and struggling on the other side. Now that he has Sumehada, these people are a human chakra replenishment source. In addition, he was exhausted by the explosion before, and he urgently needs to replenish it. Therefore, he did not strangle this group of people directly with sewing needles and wires, but just cut off their legs. On the ground, seeing Hazuki Manayu carrying Sumehada step by step, the wailing Miss Ninjas immediately understood his plan. However, their legs were cut off, so they couldn't escape at all. Even turning over felt painful, and they had no power to resist. There were even a few Miss Ninjas who couldn't stand the pain of broken legs, and had slit their throats. Now, they could only watch the boy approach step by step, but they could do nothing. On the other side, just after arriving at the edge of the explosion battlefield, Yagura was surrounded by a group of Miss Ninjas. They were the D-head Miss Ninjas of the Hazuki clan. Unlike the Fuguki clan, that lost the Mizukage candidate, their supported candidate Hazuki Maingetsu has been victorious all the way, and has not yet left the stage. It is not time for them to relax yet. In order to push Hazuki Maingetsu to the position of Mizukage, they still need to do their best to eliminate the other Mizukage competitors, especially the three-tailed Jinchuriki who needs to be taken care of as instructed by the above. Although they have seen the horror of the previous beam attack, they still have to bite the bullet and stop it. Hope to consume the opponent's power to the maximum extent and increase the chance of victory after Maingetsu. Ding. Yagura took off the coral stick from his shoulder and pounded it heavily on a stone slab, making a clanging sound. If you don't want to die, get out of my way. He looked around at the people around him and warned seriously. There were a lot of people on the other side. More than 100 people surrounded him, but there were more people watching from a distance and not coming up. Having had the experience of slaughter once, he no longer wanted to do such a thing. Therefore, he hoped that this group of people would retreat. Unfortunately, his warning was meaningless. At this moment, those who dared to stay on the battlefield and those who dared to surround and kill him were all a group of dead men who were determined to die. As for those guys, who had other purposes and were afraid, they either fled the battlefield, or hid far away, and did not dare to come forward. Kill. I don't know who shouted, and the Miss Ninjas threw out the ninja tools in their hands at the same time and shot at the boy in the middle. In an instant, a black rain of ninja tools formed in the sky, covering Yagura Kujira. You force me to do this, don't blame me. Yagura frowned, and red chakra seeped out of his body, quickly forming a translucent red coat that wrapped him up. After Yagura and Maingetsu finished fighting, the battle of the Mizukage was over. Chapter 236 Meeting. Yagura did not dodge, but just stood there, slowly flipping his fingers and making hand seals. Clang clang clang. The ninja tools fell like black rain, shooting at the chakra coat on his body, making clang clang sounds. Boom boom boom. Explosions followed one after another. Among the thrown ninja tools, some of the kunai tied with detonating tags were detonated when they approached Yagura, and the red flames mixed with grey and black smoke submerged everything. Following the rain of ninja tools, there were various ninjutsu of the Miss Ninja. Water bombs, water dragons, wind blades, and lightning strikes covered the place where Yagura was, and nothing could be sensed except the mixed and violent chakra fluctuations of the crowd. Despite this, the people around him still did not stop attacking. because they knew that with the control that Yagura currently showed over the three-tail, it was basically impossible to defeat the opponent with this level of attack. At this time, a shocking chakra fluctuation was heard in the area submerged by the ninjutsu of the crowd. The intensity of the chakra fluctuation was far beyond their imagination, and even suppressed the ninjutsu bombing fluctuations of the Miss Ninjas. Then, everyone seemed to hear the sound of a storm on the sea and a giant tsunami. Wow, a huge wave rushed up from the area where Yagura was, and directly dispersed the storm, thunder, and water bombs that submerged that area. The only thing left in everyone's eyes was the nearly 20-meter high wave. A tsunami. Looking at the huge wave, some people swallowed their saliva and took 2 steps back involuntarily. The sudden surge of such a huge wave comparable to a tsunami on this flat ground was undoubtedly the masterpiece of Yagura. They had seen it from a distance earlier and were terrified. Now seeing it at such a close distance, they were even more frightened and didn't even have the courage to resist. Boom. The huge waves like a tsunami rushed to the surroundings, and the Miss Ninjas had no way to escape and were hit by the huge waves. For a moment, the house collapsed, the trees broke, and the sound of the waves shook the sky. Everyone was swept away by the huge waves and disappeared in the battlefield. On the other side, Manu, who had just absorbed chakra from several seriously injured people and used Samehuda's chakra feeding ability to heal his injuries, saw a huge wave rushing over. This chakra amount is really enviable. Looking at the huge waves, he sighed. In this battlefield, there is no one else who can use water escape of this scale, except the three-tailed Jinchuriki with almost unlimited chakra. This attack is no different from a catastrophic tsunami, leaving people with no way to escape, and no way to stop it. Even if Samehuda absorbs chakra, it can't absorb it. He had no choice but to put away Samehuda and perform the water transformation technique to liquefy his body and prepare for the impact. Fortunately, judging from the opponent's ninjutsu, it was just a ninjutsu that used force to suppress people. In addition, his liquid body is also water-based. Whether from a physical level or from the properties of the technique, this huge wave will not cause any harm to him. In the battlefield, a tsunami-like huge wave appeared again, sweeping across many Miss Ninjas, leaving them powerless to fight back, which completely silenced the audience outside the battlefield. Especially now that the Watermelon Mountain Puffer Demon has been defeated, they can't help but start to think, who else can compete with such a monster? Mainjetsu Kizuki? Everyone has deep doubts about this. Although Mainjetsu Kizuki defeated the Puffer Demon, they can still see that Mainjetsu Kizuki won a little reluctantly. They don't have much confidence in this prodigy holding a ninja sword. Wow, the tsunami came quickly and went quickly. When the sound of the waves stopped, there was no one else in the hundreds of meters except Yagura himself. Whether it was those who besieged him, or those who watched the battle not far away, they were all swept aside by the waves along with the dilapidated buildings around him. There was nothing left on the ground except a few puddles, a few broken tree stumps and a broken foundation. These guys are too weak. According to the situation, as long as I use the Great Tsunami twice, no one should compete with me for the position of Mizukage. Looking at the desolate surroundings, Yagura said to Sanwei in his heart, "You are too happy too early. There are still dozens of people from the Ghost Lantern tribe here, and your Great Tsunami is useless to them." Sanwei, who was lying in the sealed space, raised his head and said, with its perception ability, it easily found the Ghost Lantern tribe ninjas hiding in the nearby puddles. Just like the previous time, this group of annoying guys who use the water transformation technique once again avoided the tsunami attack. As soon as Izo's words fell in Yagura's heart, dozens of human-shaped water columns surged in the puddles around Yagura. Seeing this scene, Yagura immediately recalled the annoying group of sticky candies. What a bunch of annoying guys. He wrinkled his nose and flipped his fingers again. After their bodies solidified again, the Ghost Lantern ninjas rushed to Yagura who was making hand seals on the other side without hesitation. Water style, great waterfall technique. Before the Ghost Lantern ninjas rushed to Yagura, they saw him open his mouth and spit out a rushing torrent. The surging waves knocked them into the water again. Ice style, frozen earth. Yagura, who who had already dealt with the ghost lantern ninjas once, used ice style very skillfully after water style, and immediately froze the ghost lantern ninjas who were caught off guard in the torrent. Done. Seeing that everyone was successfully frozen, Yagura carried the coral stick, walked to the frozen ninjas, looked at them carefully, and nodded with satisfaction. Well, not bad. He was very satisfied with his pile of ice sculptures. Just as he was about to leave here and move to another battlefield, a young voice called him. Why are you in such a hurry to leave? Why don't you play with me? Yagura turned around when he heard the voice and saw a human-shaped water column surging from a puddle on the other side. That was Maingetsu Kizuki. He had been hiding aside, wanting to use the power of many of his fellow tribesmen to consume Yagura and then take the opportunity to explore the other party's details. Who knew that Yagura seemed to know how to deal with their water transformation technique, and in a few seconds, he skillfully solved dozens of his fellow tribesmen. This made him, who was watching the battle on the other side, very depressed. As a last resort, he had to show up in the field in advance. There is actually another Maingetsu ninja. Seeing this, Yagura frowned, quickly formed a set of hand seals, and sprayed a high pressure water column at the boy who suddenly appeared. Water escape water formation column, guessing that he was going to use the same trick again and wanted to freeze himself with ice escape. Maingetsu Kizuki did not dare to use his liquefied body to take the high pressure water column and immediately landed on the huge ice block that froze many of his fellow tribesmen. He took out the contract scroll, quickly made a seal, and then took out the doujia from it. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 237, Disadvantage. Because of Maingetsu's evasion, Yagura's high-pressure water column immediately fell into the air, once again washing out a huge mud pit on the wet ground. Clang! Maingetsu raised his Daogashi and smashed it down at the ice layer under his feet. Crack! With a burst of intensive cracking sounds, countless tiny cracks appeared on the frozen huge ice layer. The cracks quickly spread to the entire ice layer, and then exploded with a crisp sound. One by one, the frozen Maingetsu people took the opportunity to break free and escaped. Thank you, Lord Maingetsu. The people who escaped thanked the boy holding Daogashi in unison. With everyone avoiding the high pressure water column that Yagura turned to shoot, Maingetsu raised his hand and signaled, "There is nothing for you here, all of you to get out of the way." Yes. Everyone had no objection, and after responding, they all quickly moved away from the battlefield. On the other side, finding that it was difficult to hit the opponent with the high pressure water column, it was just a waste of effort, so Yagura had to stop releasing the technique. You are quite interesting. Yagura stopped casting spells and looked at the boy from the Hazuki clan holding the kabuto with interest. As for the Hazuki clan ninjas that he released, he didn't even look at them. Because for guys of that level, if he could seal them once, he could also seal them a second time. It didn't matter whether he released them or not. The interesting things are still to come. Manu raised the corner of his mouth, took out the contract scroll again, put the kabuto into it, and took out Sumehada. Sumehada? Recognizing one of the famous 7 ninja swords at a glance, Yagura asked in surprise, shouldn't the current holder of Sumehada be Zigwushin Puffer Demon? How come it is in your hands? Even he knew the 7 ninja swords of the Hidden Mist Village like the back of his hand, and he also knew clearly the identity of the current holder of Sumehada. After putting away the scroll, Maingetsu pointed Sumehada at the boy opposite and said with a smile, according to the rules of the Hidden Mist Village, the person who defeats the current ninja swordsman will be the next ninja swordsman. And I, Maingetsu Kizuna, defeated the Watermelon Mountain Puffer Demon, so I'm the second holder of Sumehada. Oh. Yagura was amazed and looked at the boy of the same age in front of him carefully. Although he didn't know much about the Watermelon Mountain Puffer Demon, the reputation of the 7 ninja swordsmen was something that no mist ninja had not heard of. Especially before the war, the 3rd generation had repeatedly warned him to be careful of Sumehada in the hands of the Puffer Demon, which made him more cautious about the ninja swordsman, who was about to become his opponent. But now, the guy who should have been his biggest opponent was inexplicably killed by such a boy of the same age, which really surprised him. In his heart, Sanwei said slowly, "Just now, I sensed the breath of Samehada from afar, but the chakra breath of its holder at that time was different from this boy. It was another guy." After that violent explosion, the chakra breath of the Samehada holder also changed. I think it should be at that time that this kid used some means to defeat the original Samehada holder. After listening to Sanwei's analysis, Yagura echoed in his heart, "Well, that makes sense." Then, he asked curiously to Maingetsu Kizuna on the other side, "Can you tell me, how did you defeat the Ziguishan Puffer Demon? Also, what about that violent explosion just now?" Compared to the upcoming battle, he is more curious about the truth behind the Puffer Demon's defeat and explosion. "Want to know?" Kitten Maingetsu looked at him jokingly, and immediately rushed over with Samehada in his hand, shouting, "As long as you beat me, I will tell you the answer." Yagura felt a flash before his eyes, and the huge Samehada with barb stood up and chopped down on his head. What a fast speed. He was secretly shocked and quickly held the coral stick in his hand across his head, narrowly blocking Samehada's slash. Boom. Samehada hit the coral stick, and a huge force burst out, which was guided into the ground through Yagura's body, and directly sank the ground for more than 2 meters in radius. He didn't expect that the opponent's weak body could burst out with such amazing power. Caught off guard, he was immediately hammered into the ground like a wooden stake. At the same time, Sanwei hurriedly reminded in his heart, "Be careful, that is the Haoshujan Jutsu of the Hazuki family. It can transform and strengthen the arm on the basis of liquefying the body, thereby achieving the effect of increasing arm strength." Hearing this, Yagura shifted his attention from Samehada pressing on the coral stick, and immediately saw Hazuki Manayu's arm holding the handle of the knife, which was more than twice as thick. Manayu, who was pressing the coral stick tightly with Samehada, said excitedly, "The knife of Samehada is not for chopping, but for cutting." As soon as he finished speaking, he slightly tilted the force on the knife, and cut the blade of Samehada directly to the left along the smooth stick body. Sensing the danger, Yagura hurriedly released his right hand holding the coral stick. Clang. Samehada rubbed along the stick body, making a harsh sound, and immediately fell to the ground. But Manayu's attack did not end there. He twisted his waist, and Samehada was lifted upside down from the ground, slashing towards Yagura's waist. Yagura, whose fingers had escaped the attack, could not move, because his legs were embedded in the ground. He could only hold the lower end of the coral stick with his right hand again, and blocked it vertically to the side. Clang. Samehada hit the coral stick again, making a deafening sound. However, the opponent attacked 3 times in a row, and Yagura was a little overwhelmed, and the opponent used the Heiyoshu wrist technique to enhance his arm strength, so he could no longer block this slash. Boom. Yagura felt his arms go limp, and the coral stick was immediately pressed down on his body by a huge force. He felt his feet loosen, his legs were freed from the ground, and the whole person was involuntarily smashed and flew out. At the same time, Yagura, who did not completely block the knife, was finally slashed by Manu Samehada. Although the opponent was blocked by the stick-like weapon, and did not suffer too serious injuries, Samehada was not a ninja sword that was mainly used to kill the opponent directly. Its main function was to absorb the opponent's chakra. It only needs to make direct contact with the opponent, to absorb chakra from the opponent. And Manu's purpose is exactly the same. He only needs to use Samehada to reduce Yagura's advantage as a Jinkriki little by little, and then he will be the final winner. Long. Yagura was blown away by Manu's huge force, and rolled on the wet ground for several circles, before he stopped completely. "Do you want me to help you?" In his heart, Sanwei asked in a low voice, and then said, "Just a moment ago, Samehada took away nearly a quarter of your chakra. If you get hit by 3 more swords, your chakra will be empty." "No need." Yagura quickly got up from the ground, carefully guarding against the boy opposite, and replied in his heart, "I want to try how powerful Samehada, which the 3rd generation has repeatedly warned, is." Chapter 238 Suppression. On the other side, after knocking Yagura away with a blow, Hazuki Maingetsu did not take advantage of the situation to pursue, because he was trying his best to appease Samehada, who was suddenly restless. Quiet, don't worry." He injected such thoughts into Sumehada through chakra. After a struggle, Sumehada finally calmed down. At the same time, he also learned the reason for Sumehada's restlessness through Sumehada's chakra feedback. Sumehada tasted the taste of a good friend from Yagira's chakra. A very good friend who had been with it for a long time. It was because of this that Sumehada struggled to leave him and go to that friend. If he hadn't tried his best to appease it, and Sumehada hadn't received any message from that good friend from Yagira's chakra, I'm afraid Sumehada would have been out of his control. It was really a close call. Thinking of this, Manu looked at the boy who got up on the other side and thought to himself, that legend may be true. Fortunately, Sumehada's good friend was helpless at this time, and it was impossible for him to help Yagira, and incite Sumehada to rebel. It was a blessing in disguise. However, he still couldn't relax his comfort to Sumehada. Otherwise, if Sumehada rebelled at the last minute, it would be all over. On the opposite side, Yagira, who got up and came, after refusing the help of the three-tailed beast, mobilized the chakra of the three-tailed beast to form a translucent red chakra coat on the surface of his body, entered the first stage of the tailed beast state, and quickly formed a set of hand seals. In terms of physical skills, he was obviously not as good as this boy of the same age, so he had to use the tailed beast chakra coat to protect himself before he could fight with him with confidence. He took a deep breath and then rushed out in one step. Water style, cannon bomb in a split second. He fired 5 high-pressure water bombs at Manzuki Hazuki from 5 different angles, completely blocking the opponent's possibility of moving and evading. Then, the grape-sized water bombs were seen to swell in the wind and turned into millstones, rubbing against each other in the air and making a whirring sound, and shot towards Manzuki Hazuki in the distance. Facing the powerful attack, Manzuki was not nervous at all, but rushed forward with Sumehada upside down. Originally, he could easily avoid these 5 water bombs with his water transformation technique, but he had just witnessed Yagira using water and ice style to take down dozens of his fellow tribesmen in one fell swoop. Now, when facing Yagira's water style attack, he no longer dared to use the water transformation technique to evade the water style attack. Besides, Sumehada in his hand was not a vegetarian. With the effectiveness of Sumehada absorbing chakra, Yagira's ninjutsu was meaningless to him. A water bullet as big as a millstone arrived in front of him in the blink of an eye, and Manu raised his sword to chop it. Wow. The moment Sumehada touched the water bullet, he extracted most of the chakra contained in it, and then Manu cut the water bullet that lost its chakra support into 2 pieces easily, just like cutting tofu, and took advantage of the situation to break out of the blockade of 5 high-pressure water bullets. Boom boom boom. With a tremor on the ground, the remaining water bullets fell on the open space where he had just stopped, shaking up high water and mud. How could this happen? Seeing this scene, Yagira on the other side was shocked. The high-density compressed water bullet has an extraordinary mass. Each one weighs hundreds of pounds, as heavy as an iron-cast projectile. This is called an iron cannon. With such a mass, the impact force is simply not something that ordinary people can withstand. Unexpectedly, it was actually chopped in half by Manu of Hazuki. According to his estimation, even with the power of the Great Water Arm technique, Manu of Hazuki should not be so easy. Moreover, he had not seen the other party use that kind of technique to increase his arm strength. It really surprised him. He did not hide his thoughts from the three-tailed fox. Knowing what he was thinking, the three-tailed fox slowly explained in the sealed space, the little guy Sumehada has a very strong ability to absorb chakra. As long as ordinary ninjutsu comes into contact with it, the chakra will be sucked away, causing the structure of the ninjutsu to be destroyed. That kid just used Sumehada to instantly drain the chakra in the water bomb, causing the high-pressure water bomb to become an ordinary water ball, so it can be easily split with a knife. Oh, so powerful? Hearing this, Yagira wrinkled his nose. He had heard that Sumehada had the ability to absorb chakra, but he had never seen it, so he didn't have any impression. Now, the scene in front of him finally gave him a general understanding of Sumehada's terrifying absorption ability. Then, Yagira suddenly had an idea and asked, I think that sword is not very big. I wonder if you can use your chakra to blow it up. At the same time, seeing Main Jetsuki Zuki split the water bomb, rushed out of the encirclement, and rushed straight towards him. Yagura retreated hastily, picked up the coral stick stuck in the ground, and prepared to fight back. Unexpectedly, Sanwei was stunned for a moment before replying, "Don't even think about it. That guy doesn't look big, but his appetite is not small. The amount of chakra that can be contained in his body is far beyond your imagination. My chakra can't fill its appetite at all." Outside, Maingetsu Kizuki rushed to Yagura at a very fast speed and chopped with his sword. Although, with Samehada in hand, he was not afraid of Yagura's long-range ninjutsu attack, but if Yagura used the large-scale ninjutsu before, he would be in trouble. It's not that Samehada is not good, but the scale of that ninjutsu is too large. Even with Samehada's super absorption ability, it is impossible to draw away the chakra of that scale ninjutsu in an instant. This is a problem of not being able to keep up with the absorption speed. If Samehada cannot be used to instantly destroy that kind of large-scale ninjutsu, it means that he will face a direct attack from that kind of ninjutsu. At that time, he can only unilaterally suffer the opponent's ninjutsu bombardment. Once Samehada is out of hand, defeating Yagura becomes a luxury. But the release of large-scale ninjutsu also requires a certain amount of chakra accumulation. Through close physical attack, not giving the opponent time to accumulate chakra is his way to prevent the opponent from using large-scale ninjutsu. Moreover, compared with ninjutsu attack, he is better at physical attack. Although the use of Samehada is not very proficient compared to the other 4 ninja swords he has practiced. But with his talent in swordsmanship, even if he has not practiced the swordsmanship that cooperates with Samehada beforehand, he can control Samehada freely. Moreover, he also saw it. Goji Yagura lacks combat experience, and his physical skills are just the average level of his peers. He can only crush everyone by relying entirely on the increase of the tail beast's chakra. At this moment, even if he used Samehada, which he was not very skilled at, he was still able to suppress the opponent with his swordsmanship. He also took advantage of the situation to absorb the opponent's chakra with Samehada and one ding. Yagura once again blocked Samehada's slash with the coral stick. But Manu changed his moves faster. He used Samehada freely, chopping, slashing, or cutting. With his amazing swordsmanship, he forced Yagura to retreat again and again. After several rounds of confrontation, Yagura was suppressed by his swordsmanship and completely fell into a disadvantage. Chapter 239 Rebellion. 1 knife. 2 knives. 3 knives. Soon, relying on his superb swordsmanship, Maingetsu Hazuki used the Samehada in his hand to cut Yagura 3 times, absorbing all the translucent chakra coat on his body. Ding. The 4th knife followed closely, and Yagura barely blocked it with the coral stick in his hand, but was still chopped away by Maingetsu Hazuki's surging arm strength. No, that guy's swordsmanship is too powerful. I can't beat him at all. Aizo, come out and help. The moment he was chopped away, Yagura called out anxiously in his heart. Originally, it didn't matter if he was not as good as others in physical skills. He just needed to keep a distance and attack with his best ninjutsu. But the opponent seemed to intentionally not want him to perform ninjutsu, and kept following him closely, launching a swift offensive against him, forcing him to have no chance to perform any skills. What's more fatal is that the opponent, relying on the ability of Samehada in his hand to absorb chakra, broke his chakra coat in a few seconds. Without the protection of the chakra coat, Yagura knew that he could not be the opponent of that person. Helpless, he had to ask the three-tail for help, and let the three-tail come forward to solve the troublesome ninja sword. Outside the field, seeing the originally arrogant Yagura being suppressed by the weak Maingetsu Kizuki, everyone's jaw dropped to the ground. No one expected that Yagura, who had crushed nearly half of the battlefield, was suppressed by Maingetsu Kizuki. What surprised them even more was that Maingetsu Kizuki could still control the big sword Samehada he had just acquired so calmly. In addition to the previously seen Fibu, Sucha Needle, and Aoki, Samehada is already the 4th ninja sword used by the opponent. People can't help but start to wonder how many ninja swords Maingetsu Kizuki can use. 5? 6? Or can he control all 7? You know, the Kizuki clan is known as the sword guarding clan. At this moment, except for the defected Thunderblade Kurachurega and the beheading blade Biwajuzo, all the other ninja swords fell into the hands of the Hazuki clan. Although they had never seen him use the double blade Flatori, everyone did not doubt that he had the ability to control it. You know, since the establishment of the Hidden Mist Village, no one has ever used multiple ninja swords at the same time. Hazuki Manayu showed this talent for controlling ninja swords, which was really too terrifying. On the other side, he chopped his opponent away with a sword, and Manayu immediately chased after him with Samehada. Take advantage of his illness to kill him. At the same time, Sanwei, who discovered this critical scene, hurriedly said in his heart, "You empty your consciousness, and release the control authority of your body. I will control the body." Yeah. Yagura responded, immediately closed his eyes, and released the authority of his body. Go to hell. Hazuki Manayu followed closely behind, and chopped down again at Yagura, who was unprepared and seemed to have accepted his fate. Boom. With a loud bang, he used Samehada's huge blade to smash Yagura into the ground. The huge force instantly shattered the ground of more than 5 meters in radius, and a section of it sank in. The knife hit the unprepared opponent, but Manu didn't feel happy at all. Because when Samehada chopped the opponent, Yagura's body once again leaked a large amount of tailed beast chakra, forming a layer of black and red materialized chakra coat. With the protection of that layer of chakra coat, his knife didn't cause any substantial damage to Yagura. Even if you have more chakra, it doesn't matter. It's still a delicious meal for Samehada in my hand. Looking at the black and red figure pressed under the knife, Manu said hatefully, "Samehada, absorb it all for me." He immediately gave Samehada a loud order to absorb chakra. But this time, Samehada did not obey his order, but instead gave him a very reluctant feedback. Samehada, not knowing why, he desperately tried to infuse chakra from the hilt into Samehada, hoping to appease Samehada and let it obey his control. However, no matter how hard he tried, Samehada was unwilling to obey his orders, and was very resistant. How could this happen? Samehada's sudden change frightened Manu. He had an ominous premonition in his heart. At this moment, a vicissitudes and unfamiliar voice came from under the blade. When Samehada meets its original owner, do you think it will still listen to the orders of you, the temporary master? Boy. Manu looked closely, and found that the figure with black and red chakra opened his eyes. However, the other party only opened his left eye, and the right eye was tightly closed for some reason. "You are not Yagura, who are you?" Manu asked loudly, with a tremor in his voice. Because he noticed that the other party's voice was completely different from Yagura's, and there was a terrifying aura that was so powerful that it made people tremble. Could it be that the tailed beast went berserk and the three-tailed beast took control of the body? He guessed secretly. Haven't you guessed it? Why are you asking, even though you already know the answer? The black and red figure grabbed the blade of the Samehada sword that was pressing on him, with a hint of ridicule in his tone. It was the three-tailed beast, Isabu, who took over the authority of Yagura to control the body. "You are the three-tailed beast." Hearing this reply, Hazuki blurted out the answer in his heart. He clenched the handle of the Samehada sword and wanted to leave the other party in fear, but Samehada didn't listen to his command at all. After the three-tailed beast spoke, it struggled even more frantically. The handle of the sword became like a rope and immediately wrapped around his wrist, and then the barbs popped out and then twisted hard and immediately broke his wrist. Fortunately, Manzuki's body was protected by the water transformation technique, and the palm that was broken by the Samehada sword handle liquefied and returned without suffering any substantial damage. Seeing that Samehada was completely out of his control, Hazuki Maingetsu had no choice but to abandon Samehada and flee instantly. Outside the battlefield, everyone was shocked to see that Hazuki Maingetsu's Samehada was taken away, and the situation took a sharp turn for the worse. Just now they saw Hazuki Maingetsu using Samehada to beat Yagura to a defeat, and in the blink of an eye, Samehada was taken away by someone, which really made them a little confused. If they didn't know that both of them aspired to the position of Mizukage, it would be impossible for them to give in to each other. Everyone couldn't help but wonder if Hazuki Maingetsu gave in on purpose. Outside the battlefield, on a tall icicle, Meditarumi, who was watching the battle, said in surprise, "Samehada, how could it suddenly lose control? Wasn't it fine just now?" Nanashi thought for a moment and said slowly, Maingetsu Kizuna is just a temporary master who has been with him for less than a day. Now Sumehada has met the original master who has followed him for countless years. It would be strange if he doesn't rebel. Original master? The girl turned around in confusion, her eyes full of confusion. Nanashi looked at the black and red figure holding Sumehada on the battlefield and said, Sumehada is different from the other 6 ninja swords. It has real life and independent consciousness. Legend has it that it was originally a small fish following the three-tailed beast, responsible for digesting food, extracting and storing chakra. Later, people discovered its value and transformed it into the current big sword Sumehada. The only tailed beast that can restrain Sumehada in turn is the three-tailed beast. Chapter 240 Exposure. Originally, I thought it was just a legend, but now it seems that this legend is true. Looking at the sudden reversal of the situation on the battlefield, Nanashi sighed. But, if the three-tailed beast has such a strong ability to restrain Sumehada, then why was Yagura suppressed by Maingetsu Kizuna in the beginning? Meditarumi asked the question in her mind. Nanashiro looked back at her and continued, the Three Tails is not Yagura, and Yagura is not the Three Tails. Although we are accustomed to regarding the symbiotic Jinkriki in the tailed beast as one, you should understand that the Jinkriki actually represents 2 wills. Although Yagura can use the Three Tails chakra, he is not the Three Tails after all. His own will cannot restrain Sumehada. The only one who can restrain Sumehada is the will of the Three Tails. Hearing this, Meditarumi seemed to realize something and looked at the black and red figure on the battlefield in horror, muttering, you mean, is it the will of the Three Tails that is controlling Yagura's body now? Except for the 2 perfect Jinkriki of Kirigakure, the will of the tailed beasts and the Jinkriki have never been on the same front. Once the Jinkriki's body is dominated by the will of the tailed beast, it means destruction and revenge, and the Jinkriki's rampage is born from this. Hearing the panic in the girl's voice, Nanashiro hurriedly comforted her, don't be nervous. Before the tailed beast goes berserk, the Jinkriki will struggle for a while, foreshadowing the onset of the berserk. Now, although the Three Tails is in control of the body, the process of it gaining control of the body was very calm and rapid, and Yagura showed no signs of struggle. It seems that he took the initiative to let go of the control of his body. This means that Yagura trusts the Three Tails very much and will not use his body to destroy the Hidden Mist Village. Do you know what their trust in each other means? Hearing this, Meditarumi fell into deep thought, and it took her a long time to react. Could it be that Kiratachi Yagura has already been recognized by the Three Tails and has become another perfect Jinkriki? She said in surprise. Looking at the black and red figure on the battlefield, slowly approaching Manzuki Kizuna, Nanashiro nodded and said, I'm afraid that's the case. Otherwise, it's not enough to explain why the three-tailed beast didn't wreak havoc after taking control of the Jinkriki's body. On the protective wall, seeing Sumehada's rebellion, many clan leaders quickly guessed that it was because the three-tailed beast took control of the Jinkriki's body. Realizing this, they immediately prepared to advise the third generation and send people to suppress Yagura. But after discovering that the three-tailed beast took control of the Jinkriki's body, he was very quiet and didn't make any extraordinary moves. They couldn't help but realize that there was another meaning behind this. The will of the three-tailed beast has reached a consensus with Yagura Kiratachi and has been restrained by the Jinkriki. The three-tailed beast in Yagura's body is no longer at risk of going berserk and losing control. Yagura Kiratachi has become another perfect Jinkriki after the Jinkriki of Kirigakure. Third generation, Yagura. Could it be? Everyone looked at the third generation Mizukage, hoping to get a clear answer. The third generation pushed up his bamboo hat and said calmly, the Hidden Mist Village has gained a perfect Jinkriki. Why shouldn't you be happy for the Hidden Mist Village? After saying that, he looked at everyone jokingly. I saw that the people in his family were overjoyed. The people in the Hazuki family were worried. The people in the Fuguki family, however, showed a faint smile of gloating. The last few neutral people were left with a thoughtful look on their faces, as if they were considering something. How could it be? At the same time, the head of the Hazuki clan, who heard this confirmed news, seemed to have fallen from heaven to hell, and his mood was extremely heavy. Man, you spent a lot of effort to defeat the watermelon mountain Fuguki and get Sumehada. I thought that with Sumehada, he could defeat Yagura, ascend to the position of Mizukage, and push the Hazuki clan to the top again. Who knew that Yagura of Goji became a perfect Jinkriki, and with the help of the three-tailed beast, he easily rebelled against Sumehada. Without Sumehada's help, it was almost impossible for Mansuki to defeat Yagura. Especially now, Yagura has far exceeded their expectations, and has become an incredible perfect Jinkriki. The plan of the Hazuki clan is probably all in vain. Thinking of this, he clenched his fist tightly, letting his nails dig into his flesh without letting go. At this moment, only the tingling in his palm could barely soothe his unwilling heart. Now, all he can do is pray silently, hoping that a miracle will happen, and Mansuki can defeat the perfect Jinkriki. Although he also knew that this was unlikely, he had no choice but to pray. On the battlefield, the three-tailed man held Sumehada and pressed forward step by step against Mansuki, who had been retreating. At the same time, on the hilt of the knife in the palm of his right hand, Sumehada transmitted a feeling of extreme pleasure and attachment through the transmission of chakra. I missed you too, little guy. I'm so glad to see you again. Sanwei injected the chakra containing his thoughts into Sumehada and expressed his joy of reunion after a long separation. When Sumehada was still a small fish, they lived together in symbiosis. They spent countless years together. Later, if it weren't for the greedy humans who took a fancy to Sumehada's ability and transformed it into the current big sword Sumehada, they would not have separated. Not only that, it itself has become a pet raised by humans and has completely lost its freedom. Thinking of this, it can't help but feel more angry. At this moment, the voice of Yagura came from the bottom of his heart. Aizo, you promised me that you would not act recklessly and retaliate against everyone. Hearing this voice, the three-tailed beast reluctantly suppressed his anger and replied helplessly in his heart, "Of course I haven't forgotten what I promised you. Unlike your compatriots who always lie, we tailed beasts never break our promises." Then, it crushed the ground within a radius of 2 meters with one step, and instantly rushed to the front of Hazuki Manayu, raised Sumehada and smashed it hard. It seemed that it wanted to vent all its grievances on the boy in front of it. Unexpectedly, the opponent would suddenly burst out with such an amazing speed. Hazuki Manayu had no time to dodge, and was immediately hit by the huge blade of Sumehada, turning into a sky full of water. But not fighting back when being beaten is not Manayu's creed. He quickly gathered his scattered liquefied body together, stretched his waist like a water snake, and turned behind the black-red figure. Then he pinched his hands into a gun shape, and pointed his 2 index fingers at the enemy's head. Water style, water cannon technique. A crystal drop of water burst out from the fingertips of his 2 index fingers, instantly hitting the black-red figure's head. Clang clang. With 2 sounds that were difficult to tell which came first, the three-tailed beast was immediately blown away by Manuyu's fierce counterattack. Chapter 241 Exchange. After hitting the target, Manu did not feel any joy, because the chakra coat on the opponent's body was too thick. Such a compressed water bullet alone was not enough to cause substantial damage to the Yagura inside. His counterattack had no effect at all. What frightened him even more was that the three-tailed sword just now sucked away a lot of his chakra. Fortunately, he had sucked a lot of chakra from Yagura earlier, so he was not sucked dry by a sword. However, this was only temporary. The opponent had Sumehada in his hand, and it was only a matter of time before his chakra was sucked dry. In addition, the opponent's chakra was far greater than his, and a protracted battle was not good for him. He had to end the battle as soon as possible. Thinking of this, he took out the contract scroll in his pocket. After quickly forming a set of hand seals, he summoned the explosive sword Feniemo and blunt sword Kabuki from the scroll. "I can only rely on you, buddy." He glanced at Feniemo and said to himself. Now, he still has 4 ninja swords in his hands. Kabuki is said to be indestructible, but it is just a claim. The chakra coat on Yagura's body is too thick. Even if he manages to break through the defense with his ability, it is unlikely to cause substantial damage. The steel wire of the sewing needle is extremely sharp, but that is only for ordinary people. It is not very effective against the materialized chakra coat of the Jinkriki. The flounder can use an extremely powerful energy light blade, but it is unlikely that this light blade will penetrate the chakra coat. In addition, with Samehada in the opponent's hands, the effect of the flounder energy light blade is even more limited, which is why he did not use it to deal with the pufferfish demon earlier. The remaining one is this explosive blade flying foam. The flying foam can create detonating talismans, which have an explosive effect during the attack. Although it does not look strong, it is only limited by the number of detonating talismans. Just use the ability of the flying foam to create detonating talismans, accumulate the number of detonating talismans, and detonate them all at once, to create an extremely terrifying explosion effect. Previously, he defeated the pufferfish demon in one fell swoop with this ability. Now, this is the only way he can think of to quickly end the battle and win. On the other side, the Three Tails was blasted away for a long distance by two compressed water bullets fired by Maingetsu Kizuki. It shook its head and slowly got up from the ground. Protected by a thick chakra coat, although it was not injured, the two water bullets hitting its head still made it a little confused. Forget it, Samehada has been taken back, you should deal with that guy yourself. It rubbed its head and said to Yagura in its heart, why don't you fight anymore? Isn't it rare for you to come out? Yagura asked in surprise. I thought that giving Isage a chance to relax would make it happier, but I didn't expect it to give up. The three-tailed beast replied helplessly, I'm not a human being. In addition, my body is very different from yours. I'm not used to fighting with others with your body. The experience is really bad. You should control your body and play with that kid. Its body is like a giant turtle, which is completely different from Yagura's human body. It is very awkward to control. If it is not for its inability to adapt to Yagura's human body, it would not be so easily blown away by the attack of Maingetsu. In terms of adaptability to the human body, among the 9-tailed beasts, it is estimated that only the 4-tailed Son Goku has the highest adaptability. Because its body is a fiery red giant ape, which is very similar to the human form. It's a pity that the current 4-tailed Jinchuriki has not reached a consensus with Son Goku, and Son Goku has no chance to control the body of the Jinchuriki. Then, the 3-tailed beast released Yagura's body authority and returned his consciousness to the body in the sealed space. Helplessly, Yagura had to take over the control of his body again. Is this Samehada? He looked at the strange weapon in his hand with great interest. At the same time, Samehada received the order from the Three Tails to cooperate with Yagura, and Samehada outputted a stream of chakra with goodwill from the hilt of the knife. Yagura was very happy to notice Samehada's intention to show goodwill like a puppy. This time, it's my turn. He looked at Maingetsu Hazuki not far away and said with great joy. Maingetsu Hazuki had previously beaten him with Samehada, and he had no chance to fight back. Now that he also got Samehada, he naturally wanted to use the same method to regain his face. In addition, Samehada's ability was too interesting, and he was playful by nature and certainly didn't want to miss this opportunity. Then, he took back part of the chakra on the surface of his body and returned to the first stage of tailed beast transformation. The second stage of tailed beast transformation is strong, but it also has great limitations. In that state, the Jinchuriki is half human and half beast, and many ninjutsu and moves cannot be used. In terms of combat flexibility, it is actually not as good as the first stage of tailed beast transformation. It's just relying on the amount of chakra to suppress others. Only in this first stage of the tailed beast state can the Jinchuriki better play the advantages of the human form, and also have the protection ability of the chakra coat. Then, Yagura carried Samehada and rushed towards Suzuki Maingetsu excitedly. Feeling the change in Yagura's breath, Maingetsu immediately understood that the three-tailed beast had lost control of the body, and now it became a confrontation between him and Yagura. Seeing this, Maingetsu spat fiercely and said disdainfully, with your ordinary physical skills, you dare to use Samehada to fight me? You really look down on me. Then, he shook his body and split his liquid body into two, becoming two people. This is a special clone method of the water transformation technique. Unlike ordinary clones, this is a real clone. There is no difference between the two clones, and they are all part of the original body. In other words, in this state, he has two lives. The opponent can't really kill him if he kills only one person. Only by killing both of them can his life be completely ended. But the price of this clone is that the power of the main body is divided into two, resulting in a decline in strength. Moreover, when the clones merge, the damage of the clones will be transferred to the main body. If the two clones are injured at the same time, it means that, when the main body is merged, he will suffer double the damage. Kill. Kill. The two Hazuki Man'yu, one holding a katana and the other holding a fimo, shouted loudly and rushed straight towards the figure running towards them. Clang. Man'yu holding fimo took the initiative to block Yagura from the right. The collision between Samehada and fimo produced dazzling sparks. But because of the clones, the power decreased and could not resist Yagura with the chakra of the tailed beast. As soon as Fimo touched Samehada, Man'yu's arm was immediately numb by the power transmitted from Samehada, and his feet loosened, and his body involuntarily retreated. However, he did not intend to use Fimo to wrestle with Yagura. Then, he immediately controlled Fimo and spread a layer of detonating talisman on the downward side of the blade. Explode. With a thought, he immediately activated his chakra to detonate the detonator on the blade. Boom. With the flames and roar, a violent impact suddenly came from Fimo's blade, which immediately caught Yagura off guard. The Man'yu clone holding Fimo also took advantage of the impact of the explosion to withdraw immediately. This plot is finally coming to an end. It should be over this week. Chapter 240 to letting go. Taking this opportunity, Maingetsu's clone holding a dagger also rushed forward from the left. The silver axe blade chopped directly on Yagura's waist. However, Maingetsu's power was greatly reduced. Even with the Heiosu arm technique, it was just barely reaching the normal level of strength. In addition, Yagura's body was protected by a layer of chakra coat, so the knife did not cause much damage to him, but only pushed him back. Rustle. Yagura pressed Samehada to the ground and used the barbs of Samehada to drag a scratch several meters long on the ground, which completely stabilized the situation. Soon, Samehada's dissatisfaction came from the handle of the knife. It doesn't like being ordered around like this. Sorry, I won't do it next time. Glancing at the upset Samehada, Yagura hurriedly apologized, and his heart became more and more interested in this angry ninja sword. At the same time, the Man'yu clone holding a dagger chased up again, holding a silver axe blade, and chopped down at his head. Yagura did not dare to take it head on, and slightly turned sideways, dodging, and the axe blade fell into the open space. Boom. The axe blade sank into the ground, shattering the ground within a radius of 2 meters. Where is Sanwei? Why did it shrink back again? The Man'yu clone pulled out the axe blade from the ground, frowned at the boy who dodged and asked. Yagura gently stroked the barbs on the Samehada sword and said nonchalantly, "It said that my body is not convenient to use, so I'm too lazy to play with you." Play? Man'yu heard this, and his face suddenly became extremely ugly. Only then did he understand that Sanwei didn't take him seriously at all. In its heart, the fight between them was just a kind of play. Then, a feeling of humiliation arose in his heart. Just as he was about to provoke and lure Sanwei out again, he suddenly realized that Sanwei's disdain was also his opportunity. Originally, he planned to use half of his body to hold Yagura and the other half to hold Fimo, waiting for an opportunity to set up a detonating talisman formation around him. He was ready to repeat the same trick, using the method he used to kill the puffer ghost to kill Yagura again. However, the three-tailed beast was too violent, and he couldn't help but worry that his half-body couldn't hold the other party. Now, the tailed beast and the Jinchuriki exchanged control of the body again, and it was Yagura, the furry kid, who had to deal with him, so the difficulty naturally dropped a lot. What surprised him even more was that Yagura, this guy, actually wanted to show off and take revenge, and gave up his own strengths, and insisted on using Samehada to deal with him. This undoubtedly delayed time for him, and created a more convenient opportunity. Thinking of this, he immediately suppressed the feeling of humiliation in his heart. As long as he successfully dragged the other half of his body to completely set up the detonating talisman formation and completely defeated Yagura, personal honor and disgrace would be a trivial matter. For the future of the Hazuki clan, he was willing to give everything. "Then let me play with you," Man'yu said coldly, and then rushed over with the Kabutoki. With the sound of the collision between Samehada and Kabutoki, the two once again launched a fierce swordsmanship confrontation. Why did Manu Hazuka's swordsmanship suddenly decline so much? Outside the field, seeing the fierce confrontation between the two, Meditarumi said in surprise. Even though she didn't know swordsmanship, she could see that Yagiragoji didn't know swordsmanship at all and just smashed Sumehada. There was no method to speak of. What's more surprising is that Manu Hazuki, who could fight fiercely with Fubagi and swordsmanship with Kabutoki, actually fought a tie with Yagira who smashed around. It was really confusing. After hearing this, Qishuang pointed at another clone of Maingetsu Kizuki that was roaming around the edge of the battle between the two and said, "Look at what he is doing." Meditarumi looked closely and saw another clone of Maingetsu Kizuki holding a flying foam, roaming around the edge of the battle between the two, as if ready to attack at any time, but she couldn't see that the other party had any intention of attacking. She felt that the other party was more like doing something else, but it was too far away to see clearly. Seeing that the girl didn't answer and looked confused, Qishuang explained sympathetically that guy is going to use the same trick again. He wants to use the method he used to deal with the puffer ghost, to deal with Yagira again. Hearing this, the girl immediately came to her senses and tried to ask, "You mean his other half is using the sneak attack as a cover to quietly bury detonating talismans around?" "Yes." Qishuang nodded. "How can you be so sure? But what if he is really preparing for a sneak attack and has been looking for an opportunity?" Meditarumi asked unwillingly. Nanashiro took a deep breath and said slowly, "Maingetsu Hazuki has at least 4 ninja swords in his hands. In terms of sneak attack capabilities, wouldn't a smaller and lighter sewing needle be more suitable? Why did he choose Fimo and let his clone follow him around the periphery with it, and there has been no movement for a long time?" As he said that, he turned his head to look at the girl and continued, "Although this place is far away, you should still be able to see that his clone holding Fimo is wandering around the periphery and has been making small moves. Except for burying detonating tags, I can't think of what else he can do with Fimo." After hearing what he said clearly, Meditarumi no longer questioned it. Originally, she felt that there was something strange about Maingetsu Hazuki's clone holding Fimo. After his analysis, she was even more convinced. On the battlefield, Yagira, who was fighting Maingetsu Hazuki with Sumehada, heard the voice of the three-tailed beast in his heart. "Yagira, that guy's other clone seems to be doing something outside. You must be careful. Its perception ability is much stronger than that of ordinary ninjas, but it can only sense the location of the opponent and cannot sense what others have done specifically. Even professional perception type ninjas cannot do this, and only the Byakugan of the Hyuga family can see it clearly." "Oh, I see." Yagira replied in his heart, while trying to deal with the axe blade that was slashing at him. At the same time, he finally realized that he had somewhat ignored the other clone of Hazuki Maingetsu. However, this cannot be entirely blamed on him. Hazuki Maingetsu is the most interesting guy he has met since he entered the battlefield. He was able to hold on for so long under Sumehada's attack without being defeated, which really made him look at him with new eyes. Defeat. Wait. As if thinking of something, Yagira slashed Sumehada with all his strength and immediately forced Hazuki Maingetsu, who was holding a dagger, away and stepped back a few steps, temporarily stopping the battle. He still remembered that Maingetsu Hazuki had beaten him back with Sumehada in the beginning and was obviously much stronger than him in physical skills. Now, he did not use his most commonly used coral stick, but used the Sumehada he had just acquired, which he did not know how to use at all. He just smashed it randomly, but ended up in a tie with the opponent. This was obviously wrong. Even if the opponent also used an unskilled weapon, the two should not have ended in a tie when his physical skills were stronger than his. Thinking of this, he subconsciously asked Maingetsu Hazuki, "Did you let me win on purpose?" Chapter 243 Reaplay. Hearing this, Manu raised the corner of his mouth and sneered, "You found out too late." Then, Yagira saw that the other clone holding Femo quickly caught up. The two stood side by side, then slowly liquefied and merged into one again. It changed back to its original appearance again, but there was an extra Femo in his right hand. If it was the old guy Fubagi, I'm afraid he would have found out something was wrong a long time ago. It's a pity that you are not him. Manu shook his head regretfully, but the trace of sarcasm hanging on the corner of his mouth did not seem to be really regretful. Carefully scanning the surroundings, Yagura asked nervously, "What did you do?" Manu put the Doujin in his left hand into the scroll, gestured with the Feiemo in his hand, and said with a fake smile, "I used up all the Feiemo talisman paper, and laid nearly 1 million detonating talismans around here. Are you surprised or unexpected?" After saying that, he looked at the boy opposite with great pride. It is true that Fimo has the ability to make explosive talismans, but Fimo needs to refill the talisman paper to make explosive talismans. When the talisman paper is fully stocked, Fimo can make about 2 million explosive talismans. Previously, he had used up 1 million talisman paper to deal with the pufferfish ghost. Now, in order to deal with Yagura, he used up all the remaining talisman paper. If this number of almost 1 million explosive talismans is not enough to break the defense of the tailed beast Jinchuriki, then he really has no choice. What? Hearing that the other party buried 1 million explosive talismans around, Yagura's heart couldn't help but skip a beat. In his life, he has only seen people use nearly 100 explosive talismans at a time. This 1 million is really too scary. At the same time, the three-tailed beast in the sealed space also recalled the previous shocking explosion. It seems that it should be the kid from the Hazuki family who did it. Not good. It thought to itself that it was not good, and hurriedly reminded Yagura, "The power of the explosion is unimaginable. Quickly use the complete tailed beast transformation to resist." Although it had not actually seen the scene of 1 million detonating tags exploding, it could estimate with its toes that the power of the explosion must be extraordinary. Whether it is the first stage or the second stage of the tailed beast transformation, the defense of the Jinchuriki is extremely limited. In order to resist this horrifying 1 million detonating tags, it thinks it is more appropriate to use the strongest defense of the Jinchuriki. The so-called strongest defense is the tailed beast body that has been completely transformed into a tailed beast. There is no defense that can compare to the huge body of the tailed beast that has materialized chakra. "Well, I know." Yagura responded immediately and looked at the boy opposite him with hatred. It seemed that the seal in his body was broken, and a large amount of chakra immediately gushed out of his body. Humph, a dying struggle. Seeing this, Manu showed a disdainful smile on his face and slammed the droplets to the ground and quickly formed a set of hand seals. Water style, water wall. Then he saw a circle of blue water curtain gushing out from around him, immediately protecting him inside. Learning from the previous lesson, he did not dare to use his liquefied body to withstand the explosion of so many detonating tags and prepared to use ninjutsu to buffer it. At the moment when the water curtain rose, Manu triggered a trace of chakra left on the water curtain and the splashing water, using it as a fuse to detonate all the detonating tags around. Boom boom boom. Accompanied by the thunderous sound, the already broken earth was shattered again in the fierce explosion. The blazing flames rose from the earth again, like a volcanic eruption, drowning everything. The scorching airwaves carried smoke and dust and swept around. Unfortunately, the ground had been baptized by several battles and was already empty, with only the dust on the ground, blown away by the wind. For a time, the flying sand and rocks covered the sky and the sun, and nothing could be seen. There was an uproar outside the field. Only a few sharp-eyed guys saw a huge figure flashing through the flames before the flames drowned everything. "Do you think that Mainjutsu Kizuki's attack can defeat Yagura?" Mediterumi asked the boy next to her tentatively on an ice pillar outside the field. "I don't think so." Nanashi shook her head and continued, "Because of the tailed beasts, the defensibility and vitality of the Jinchuriki are among the best in the ninja world. And judging from the power of this wave of explosions, it is about the same as the previous one. Even a guy like Ziguishin Puffer Ghost can survive that kind of explosion, so Yagura must be able to do it too. The question is, how much combat power will he have left after this wave of explosions?" He did not forget the group of Miss Ninjas who hurriedly withdrew from the battlefield carrying Puffer Ghost. Although he was also surprised that Puffer Ghost survived that kind of explosion, he had to let it go when he thought that he had been in the land of water for so many years and was still the strongest under the Mizukage. Without any skills, the pufferfish demon would never have been in charge of Sumehada for so many years. On the other side, the girl nodded and pinched her chin and said, "That's right. Even that annoying guy survived. I'm afraid that Yagura will be fine too." The flames dissipated, and a huge figure appeared faintly on the battlefield. It was just that the smoke was too thick, and everyone couldn't see what was inside. They only felt that there was a very oppressive breath coming out of it. As the smoke slowly dissipated, the huge figure gradually became clear. A giant turtle-like creature with barbed grey armor and three tails appeared in everyone's eyes. Three tails. Someone immediately recognized the identity of the giant turtle-like creature, and his voice couldn't help but tremble. Because, in his impression, the appearance of the three-tailed beast meant that the seal of the Jinkriki was invalid. The tailed beast lost its restraints and was about to run away and cause great destruction. In addition to him, many Mist ninjas who were watching the battle recognized the identity of the three-tailed beast. In a short time, the news that the three-tailed beast was out of trouble and was about to go berserk spread among the crowd. Everyone was terrified and fled backwards. Even the remaining Mist ninjas on the battlefield gave up the fight and fled to the edge of the battlefield in panic. At this moment, the third Mizukage on the protective wall took the loudspeaker handed over by his assistant and shouted loudly, "Don't panic. The three-tailed beast is not going berserk. It has reached a consensus with the current three-tailed Jinkriki and will no longer retaliate against the Mist Ninja and wreak havoc. So, please relax, calm down, and continue to watch the battle." Hearing the powerful voice of the third generation, everyone seemed to have found the backbone and immediately stopped running, trying their best to suppress their anxious hearts, because they believed that the Mizukage would not fool them with such an important matter. After taking another look at the three-tailed beast on the battlefield and finding that it had no intention of wreaking havoc, everyone finally put down their hanging hearts and slowly returned to their previous watching positions. Today, it seems that the college entrance examination has begun, right? I wish you all a good exam result 2019.6.7. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 244 Funeral. In the huge explosion pit, the three-tailed beast stared at a pool of liquid that was slowly solidifying into a human shape not far in front of it with its single eye, and said solemnly, "I admit that I underestimated you, kid. The violent explosion caused by the 1 million detonating talismans was too much for even it. Although its outer shell looked intact, its internal organs were seriously injured by the impact of the explosion. You know, with its hard shell, its defense is one of the best among the nine-tailed beasts. Unexpectedly, it was actually injured by a mere child with a detonating talisman today. It really made it feel ashamed and angry." Hearing the anger hidden in its words, Manzuki Hazuki, who had completely revealed his human form, smiled bitterly and said, "I didn't expect that you would stand on the same front with him and help him to perform the complete tailed beast transformation, making him a perfect Jinkriki." The three-tailed beast's rational attitude made Manzuki's heart fall to the bottom. This shows that the manifestation of the three tails was not due to the failure of the seal and the Jinkriki's rampage, but the result of the cooperation between the Jinkriki and the tailed beasts. Earlier, the other party had briefly appeared and took away his Samehada. He comforted himself and thought that it was just a deal between Yagura and the three tails, so that it temporarily helped. Now, everything in front of him had to make him believe that Yagura had become a perfect Jinkriki. To express my apology to you, I decided to pay tribute to you with my strongest move. The three tails stared at the boy not far away and continued, "I will only make one move. After one move, life and death will not matter. Of course, you can also choose to surrender and admit defeat. This is the rule of the battle for the Mizukage." As he said, the three tails opened his mouth wide, and chakra quickly gathered in front of his mouth. A sesame-sized chakra ball was formed in an instant and grew rapidly at a speed visible to the naked eye. That was the tailed beast ball brewing. Surrender? How is it possible? After hearing its words, Manu smiled self-deprecatingly. He shoulders the hope of the revival of the Hazuki clan and is the next successor to the clan leader of the Hazuki clan. Even if he loses the battle, he will never surrender. Even if he dies, he will never surrender. He will fight to the last moment, until his life stops. Unfortunately, in order to resist the explosion just now, he has consumed most of his chakra, and his body has a serious injury. Although he was well prepared this time, which is much better than the explosion of the pufferfish ghost, at this moment, he has lost 90% of his combat power, which can be said to be just a facade. He has no ability to fight back at all, let alone block the tailed beast ball released by the three-tailed beast himself. But even so, he has no intention of giving up. Whether for the Hazuki clan or for himself, he decided to try his best to survive. Then, he quietly separated a part of his liquefied body and seeped into the ground from the bottom of his feet. On the surface, he still pretended to be serious and ready to take the fight at any time. Aizo, the tailed beast ball has such a great destructive power, why are you still using this move? Yagura asked nervously in his heart, when the three-tail was accumulating chakra. Don't worry, I know my limits, and won't affect too many people. In terms of chakra control ability, I'm much better than you. You should learn it seriously. The three-tail replied in his heart unhappily. The tailed beast ball is its ultimate move, that it has used for many years. In terms of control ability, it is definitely better than Yagura, who has only learned it for less than half a year. It is naturally confident that it can control the approximate destructive range of the move. At the same time, seeing the three-tail brewing the tailed beast ball, the people outside the field couldn't help but feel sorry for main Jetsu Kizuki. Such a genius is going to be buried under the tailed beast ball. Chief, do you want to? Some people from the Kizuki family found the chief on the protective wall, but they were interrupted by the chief before they finished speaking. No need. The head of the Hazuki clan waved his hand, looked up at the sky and said, "We are the glorious Hazuki clan. We were once the strongest clan. Man, you can die in battle, but we must never admit defeat. The Hazuki family can't afford to lose that person." After saying that, he took a deep look at the thin figure facing the three-tailed beast alone on the battlefield, and then turned and left resolutely. The Hazuki family lost. Since Yagura Kujitachi showed the true form of the three-tailed beast to block the shocking explosion, the Hazuki clan no longer had the possibility of competing for the position of Mizukage. As the head of the clan, he no longer had to stay here to continue watching the battle. As for Manu, he could only silently say in his heart, "I'm sorry." As a father, he didn't want to see the miserable scene of Manu dying in battle. He chose to escape cowardly, with guilt in his heart. On the icicle, Meditarumi sighed. Even the water transformation technique of the Hazuki family couldn't withstand such a direct attack from the tailed beast ball. It's a pity for Hazuki Manayu, such a genius is going to die. It is rare for a genius who can wield multiple ninja swords to be on par with a guy like Fuguki who has been famous for a long time at this age. Even she couldn't help but sigh for the genius who is about to die. The power of the tailed beast ball is extraordinary. Being buried by the three tails deliberately using the tailed beast ball, Hazuki Manayu can be said to have died gloriously. Next to him, Nana Frost also sighed with emotion. Speaking of the tailed beast ball, Meditarumi sighed. But then again, with the power of the tailed beast ball, I'm afraid a full strength attack would be enough to flatten half of Konoha village. Back then, if that little girl from Konoha hadn't noticed our plan and killed herself in Kakishi's hands and waited until we drove her back to Konoha village and released the three tails in one fell swoop, Konoha wouldn't be where it is today. After saying that, she stomped her foot in hatred. Whenever she thought of this, she felt very sorry. They were just a little bit away from destroying Konoha village. Unfortunately, God was not kind, and the little girl discovered something unusual. How could I forget about this? After hearing her words, Nana Frost slapped her forehead, which actually scared the girl next to her. "What's the matter?" Meditarumi asked hurriedly in surprise, not even paying attention to the battle in the field. Qishuang did not hide her intentions and whispered, "The body of that little girl has another great use. We have to find an opportunity to get her." Hearing this, Terumi Medi frowned immediately and asked in surprise, "What do you want her for?" After the three tails was transferred, she was no longer useful. God knows where her body was thrown. Now, it has been nearly a year since Yagura became the Jinkriki. Even if her body can be found, it will probably be a pile of bones. The girl shook her head and was not optimistic about his search for the body of the Konoha girl. What about bones? Even if she is only ashes, she can still be useful. Qishuang smiled meaningfully. Tomorrow, this plot will be completely over. Chapter 245 Hesitation. You won't let go of the ashes? Terumi frowned and looked at him in surprise. Yes. Nana Frost nodded, looked at the battlefield, and said firmly, even if there are only ashes left, I will dig her out. Last time, Urahara escaped, which meant that the disaster of Kirigakure was inevitable. When he makes a comeback, Kirigakure will usher in the darkest era. Harurin's body is a card he prepared to deal with Urahara. Although this card has been used once, it is nothing new, and seems a bit old-fashioned, but it does not prevent him from using it again, and making use of Harurin's remaining heat. Because this is Urahara's Achilles heel. No matter how many masks he changes, or how many identities he disguises, his Achilles heel will not change at all. That person can use Harurin's death to make him fall into darkness. Similarly, Nana Frost can use Harurin's body as a bargaining chip to threaten the other party. As the saying goes, success and failure are both caused by the wind and clouds. This is what it means. At present, the war between several major countries has been initially decided, but those small countries that serve as battlefields are still suffering from the ravages of war and have not been completely pacified. I think that at this time, Urahara should be in the land of rain, preparing to guide the person in the war to the predetermined path, and has no time to come to the hidden mist village to stir up trouble. He must hurry up and find the body of Harurin. If he waits until Urahara remembers this matter and then relies on the other party's power to shuttle through space, he may not have this opportunity. Thinking of this, Qishuang made up his mind to find Harurin's body after this battle for the Mizukage is completely over. But I'm curious, what do you want to do with the girl's body so persistently? Terumi asked curiously. I want to use her to deal with someone. Qishuang said without looking back. Who? The girl continued to ask. Wait a minute, look there. Qishuang pointed to the three-tailed beast on the battlefield and reminded loudly. Terumi turned her head and saw that the three tails swallowed a chakra bullet the size of a watermelon in one gulp. Then it tilted its head slightly, locked onto the target on the ground, and opened its mouth again. A blinding white light shot out from its mouth, immediately completely submerging Maingetsu Kizuna not far away. Boom. The white light shot down on the ground without a trace of fireworks. The heavy earth was like snow in winter meeting the scorching sun. In just a moment, it melted away under the white light. Everyone only felt a violent vibration under their feet, and the white light ejected from the three tails' mouth had quietly stopped. Even from a long distance away, everyone could clearly see that in the battlefield, there was a very conspicuous hole left at the place where Maingetsu Kizuna had stood before. No one knew where the blinding white light had hit the ground. With the help of shared vision, seeing that Maingetsu had disappeared, Yagura sighed in the heart of the three tails. What a pity, such a fun guy has gone just like that. The three tails stared at the ground not far in front of it, away from the location where the tail beast ball was firing, and slowly replied, no, he's not dead yet. Earlier, because it was focused on accumulating chakra and locking onto Maingetsu's figure, it didn't pay attention to other things. Now that the tail beast ball has been released, and the other party's figure is no longer on the ground, it noticed that a part of Maingetsu's chakra aura still remained under the stratum in front of it. If it weren't for its perception ability being much stronger than that of ordinary people, it would have been difficult to detect the other party's existence through the thick stratum. Where is it? Where is it? He is too powerful, he can't die. Yagura asked excitedly in his heart. He is 5 meters underground directly in front of us. Sanwoo stared at the ground in front of him and explained in his heart, he is not like you think. He survived the attack of the tail beast ball. I think he must have used the special clone method of the Hazuki family, with half of his body above to attract my attention, and the other half of his body sneaked underground and approached me, so he escaped. But the half of his body left on the ground was completely annihilated by the tail beast ball. Even if he is not dead now, he is almost half a useless person. However, I have said in advance that I will only use one move. After one move, it doesn't matter whether he lives or dies. Now, it's up to you to decide how to deal with him. After saying that, Sanwei took a deep breath and saw that its huge body collapsed and shrank towards the center at a speed visible to the naked eye, as if it was sucked in by an inexplicable force. Soon, a thin figure was faintly revealed in the center of the contraction. The huge body of Sanwei was absorbed into the body of that person. When the body of the three-tail was completely absorbed, the man revealed his true face, and there was a cheer outside the venue. That was Yagura Gojira. The third Mizukage had not fooled them. This three-tailed Jinkriki really had full control over the power of the tailed beast, and could release and retract it, and there would be no possibility of rampage. Underground, at the moment, when he sensed that half of his body on the ground had completely lost contact, Manzuki Hazuki vomited a large mouthful of blood. I still underestimated the tailed beast. He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and smiled bitterly. Because of the water transformation technique, the bodies of the Hazuki clan can be transformed into a liquefied form, thereby avoiding most of the damage. But the tolerance of the liquefied body also has an upper limit. If it is attacked too strongly, even the liquefied body will be fundamentally destroyed. This destruction also means damage to the body. If the damage to the liquefied body is not too serious, they can still recover through recuperation, but if the damage exceeds a certain degree, it will cause irreparable damage. Now, half of his body has been completely destroyed, which has far exceeded the limit of recovery. With the transformation foundation of the water transformation technique, although his limbs will not be mutilated, he will always remain in this half-disabled appearance, and will never be able to recover. Even if his body still has room for growth as he ages, his overall condition is still only half of his prime. He has become half a disabled person. On the ground, because of the strike of the three-tailed beast, Yagura had to consider how to deal with Maingetsu Kizuki himself. Should I kill him or not? He carried Samehuda on his shoulders, thinking about it, while searching for the lost coral stick. If he said he would find it and kill it, he felt a little regretful. After all, Maingetsu Kizuki had just played with him for a while. Although the other party deliberately let him go and tied with him later, which made him a little angry, he generally felt that he had had a lot of fun before. It was really hard to kill him like this. But if he said he would let the other party go, he felt that the previous battle was all in vain. He still felt a little reluctant. Just as he was hesitating, he suddenly found a familiar half-stick shaped weapon in the gravel. It was his coral stick. Chapter 246 ending. Finally found it. Yagura pulled the coral stick out of the gravel with joy. Although the Samehuda on his shoulder was also quite interesting, he still felt that his coral stick was more convenient to use. After all, he was not good at using a knife. Wiping off the dust on the stick, Yagura carefully put it behind his back and used chakra to absorb it on his back. Originally, he wanted to carry Samehuda on his back and hold the coral stick in his hand, but the blade of Samehuda was too huge. If he carried it on his back, it would hit the ground if he was not careful, making it very inconvenient to walk, so he could only carry it on his shoulder. However, the people outside the field saw that such a small guy was carrying a weapon that was a circle larger than his body. Such an interesting scene made them laugh out loud. After finding the coral stick, Yagura once again focused his attention on the surface area pointed by the three-tailed beast. After staring for a long time, he finally made up his mind and said to himself, "Forget it, let him go this time. I hope we have another chance to play again next time." Then, he carried Samehuda and turned to another direction, ready to continue to clear the mist ninjas on the battlefield. He clearly remembered that the third Hokage had instructed that he must fight until everyone present dared not disobey. After Yagura walked away, the Hazuki clan members who hid far away and did not dare to move forward quickly rushed to the center of the battlefield between the two to search for the whereabouts of Hazuki Maingetsu. Although they did not think that Maingetsu could still survive under that kind of attack. But Maingetsu was the son of the clan leader after all, and the candidate for the Hazuki clan to participate in the competition for the Mizukage this time. In addition, the contract scroll of the ninja sword was still in his hand, and the Hazuki clan members could not just leave without asking. After a search, they did not find any trace of Maingetsu's existence. Even in the deep hole left by the bombardment of the tailed beast ball, they sent people down to look for it, but they found nothing. Maingetsu seemed to have evaporated from the face of the earth, leaving no trace at all. What should we do? There is not even a body remnant. How should we report to the clan leader when we go back? A member of the Hazuki tribe asked his companion. Someone said impatiently, what else can we do? Keep looking. If we go back empty-handed, we will be executed. Although the death of Hazuki Manayu and the loss of the ninja sword contract scroll were not directly related to them, the consequences of these things accumulated together were too serious. It was inevitable that they would be implicated. Just when everyone was in low spirits, a stream of clear water slowly seeped out from the surface a few meters away. At the same time, everyone also sensed an extremely weak and familiar chakra breath. It's Manayu. This is the chakra breath of Manayu. A member of the Hazuki tribe who reacted first shouted excitedly. Hearing this, the others immediately realized that it was the chakra of Hazuki Manayu, and immediately searched for the source of the chakra breath. Then, they saw a clear spring gushing out not far from the bombardment position of the tailed beast ball, and slowly turned into a human form. Hazuki Manayu appeared. Because he was hiding deep underground, Manayu didn't know the situation on the ground, so he didn't dare to show up easily. Earlier, he was a little worried when he found signs of someone searching in the nearby area, thinking that it was Yagura of Goji who found out that he was not dead and was looking for his trace. But later, when he found that it was the breath of his fellow tribesmen, he realized that it must be Yagura who left, so they dared to look for his trace. Therefore, he came out from underground. Huh. That guy's not dead yet. Nana Frost, who had been paying attention to the battlefield, was shocked when she saw Manu of Hazuki appear. Who is not dead? Meditarumi, whose attention was taken away by Yagura, turned back and asked in surprise. Manu of Hazuki. Nana Frost pointed to the boy on the battlefield and said solemnly. Following his finger, Meditarumi also saw the resurrected Manu of Hazuki. How is it possible? The girl widened her eyes and covered her mouth in surprise. She saw with her own eyes that Manu of Hazuki was hit head on by the tailed beast ball of the Three Tails. No matter what, she didn't believe that the opponent's liquid body could survive such an attack. That guy must have used some special means to avoid the fatal blow, otherwise his water transformation technique alone would not be able to block the tailed beast ball. Qishuang pinched his chin and thought. The power of the tailed beast ball is obvious to all. He would rather believe that the opponent avoided the blow than to withstand it. On the battlefield, all the members of the Hazuki clan immediately rushed to the side of the newly appeared Hazuki Maingetsu. Maingetsu, are you okay? Why are you so weak? Someone asked with concern. When he found that Maingetsu's breath was abnormal. How can you not be weak after being hit by such a tailed beast ball? A fellow tribesman next to him heard it and immediately glared at him. Yeah, that's right. A fellow tribesman followed up. You only guessed half right. Maingetsu shook his head, glanced around, and said in a hoarse voice, I escaped with half of my body, but I was seriously injured. I have no strength to fight anymore. I have to leave here quickly, otherwise if Yagura finds out that I'm not dead and catches up with me, it will be troublesome. After saying that, his legs softened, his center of gravity lost, and he could no longer stand and fell forward. Fortunately, his fellow tribesmen next to him were quick to support him, so that he did not fall to the ground. Retreat, retreat, all retreat. As the order to retreat was issued, all the ninjas of the Hazuki clan withdrew from the battlefield. Seeing the Hazuki clan retreat, the Fuguki clan, who had been watching the excitement, also withdrew from the battlefield. Because, judging from the current situation, Yagura was no longer invincible, and they could not beat him if they stayed here. In addition, the candidate for Mizukage that they supported also withdrew, so it was meaningless to continue fighting. Therefore, they chose to withdraw. As the people of Hazuki and Fuguki retreated, the battlefield, which was already scared by Yagura, became even more empty. The remaining Mist ninjas retreated when they saw him, and no one dared to stop him. Soon, no one dared to fight him on the entire battlefield. Yagura Kujira became the well-deserved winner of this battle for the position of Mizukage. On the protective wall, the third generation smiled and asked everyone, the situation has been decided. Yagura Kujira will be the next Mizukage. You should have no objection, right? Although they were extremely unwilling, everyone still responded with a stiff upper lip. No. Since everyone has no objection, let's pick a time to hold the inauguration ceremony of the 4th generation Mizukage. Seeing the expressions of everyone who looked like they had eaten a fly, the 3rd generation was in a very good mood. After some discussion, everyone quickly set the time for the inauguration of the 4th generation Mizukage without any delay. After all, the overall situation has been decided, and there is no point in delaying the time. It's finally over. Chapter 247 Request. After the battle for the Mizukage, the news that Yagura Kuratachi became the perfect Jinkriki and was about to take over the position of Mizukage spread throughout the ninja world. The other 4 villages were all shocked. After all, this was the first time that a Jinkriki served as the cage of a village. The end of the month was coming in a blink of an eye, and the Hidden Mist village held a grand ceremony to inaugurate the 4th generation of Mizukage. I don't know if the 3 major ninja villages were deliberately competing with each other. Yagura's inauguration time was the same day as the 4th generation of Hokage of Konoha and the 4th generation of Reikage of Qimogakure. Unfortunately, the Hidden Mist village was far away overseas, and the transportation was not as good as that of Qimogakure and Konoha. In addition, it was notorious, so not many people came to watch the ceremony. Most of them were residents of the Land of Water. Even so, the inauguration ceremony of the 4th generation of Mizukage still attracted a lot of people. Compared with the previous battle for the Mizukage, it was even worse. The Hidden Mist village was crowded and lively that day. The perennial fog that lingered in the Hidden Mist village seemed to be dispersed a lot by the full popularity, and it seemed particularly thin. During the break, Nanashi found King. Because of the surge in traffic, he was also assigned the task of patrolling. He was responsible for patrolling alternately with the other Mist ninjas to maintain the security environment of the Hidden Mist village and guard against spies from other villages looking for opportunities to sabotage. Captain, help me check something. Nanashi said softly to the masked young man. What are you checking? King, who was holding a stack of information, asked seriously. He was a former team member who rarely asked for help from others. Now he actually took the initiative to come to him, which made him more curious. Three-tailed Jinchuriki, Nanashi whispered into King's ear. Hearing this, King immediately put away the smile on his face, quickly pulled the boy to a secluded corner nearby, and said seriously, do you know that the 4th Mizukage who took office today is a current Three-tails Jinkriki? Your question not only involves the important Jinkriki of the village, but also involves the Mizukage. These are all village secrets and you are not allowed to ask about them at will. If the Anbu gets wind of it, you should know what the result will be. After saying this, King looked at him solemnly. The level of confidentiality of the intelligence in the Kirigakure is the highest among the 5 major villages. Any act of spying on important intelligence will be subject to extremely strict scrutiny. Under torture, even if nothing is wrong, I'm afraid that something will be found out during the interrogation. At least, he has not heard of anyone who was caught by the Anbu and still came out alive. Qishuang smiled bitterly and said, I didn't ask you to help me find the 4th generation. I want to find the Three-tails Jinchuriki we recovered last time. The girl named Hirano Rin. Why are you looking for her? She's been dead for more than a year. King breathed a sigh of relief and continued, besides, even if it has nothing to do with the 4th generation, and is not that important, it involves the tailed beasts, which is also important information for the village. Not everyone can find out. Do you know that? After that, King glared at him fiercely. So, I'm here to ask you for help. Qishuang replied embarrassedly. The 4th generation was too young, so the 3rd generation made other arrangements before he took office, and arranged many close ministers to assist him. He, the former captain, was one of the lucky ones chosen by the 3rd generation. With the insight of the Byakugan that is unrivaled in the ninja world, King was promoted to become the 4th generation's personal assistant. With King's authority, it is easy to find the whereabouts of the previous Three-tails Jinchuriki, Hirano Rin. This is also the reason why he waited until now to take action, after he had the idea of retrieving Hirano Rin's body. Without certain authority, it is impossible for ordinary Mist Ninja to access the detailed information of the Jinkriki. Hearing the meaning behind his words, King rolled his eyes at the young man and said helplessly, with my current authority, it is not a difficult task to find the whereabouts of that little girl, but you have to tell me why you are looking for her, right? Qishuang did not answer immediately, but asked, Captain, do you still remember the weird guy we met when we recalled the previous Three Tails Jinchuriki? Of course I don't remember. King touched his chest, and the scar left by the last time was still hidden under his clothes. He sighed. Thanks to him, Zabuza and I have been lying in bed for several months. I will never forget it in my life. I heard that the people in the Anbu also checked the whereabouts of that person later, but since that time, that person seemed to have disappeared out of thin air, and there was no news from the entire ninja world. Even our spies hiding in Konoha have not found any clues about the existence of that person. If it weren't for the fact that so many of us died in his hands last time, those guys above would think we were lying and made up such a weird guy. Even King himself sometimes doubted whether that guy really existed. After all, that guy only appeared once. If the scars on his body had not disappeared, he would have even thought it was just a nightmare. After hearing the captain's words, Qishuang's heart was as clear as a mirror. At this time, Hirobito faked his death and escaped. He was basically a non-existent person. It would be a miracle if the spies of Kirigakure could find useful information in Konoha. Moreover, that guy was recruited by that person after the death of Harino Rin, hiding behind the scenes, manipulating everything on behalf of that person, and rarely appeared in public. Even if he took action a few times, he killed all the witnesses. It was really difficult for the Anbu to find such a guy. Then, Qishuang scratched his head and said embarrassedly, the last time I fought with him, I found that he cared a lot about the girl from Konoha. So, I thought about finding the body of the girl and keeping it in my hands, just in case. After all, I offended him badly last time. King looked at him deeply and frowned. Didn't you use the same method last time? I'm afraid it won't work if you use this method again. King was not optimistic about the old trick. He didn't believe that there were such stupid people in the world who would make the same mistake once and make it again. Whether it works or not, it's never a bad thing to prepare for a rainy day. Qishuang smiled nonchalantly. The captain didn't know the true identity of that person, nor did he know the entanglement between that person and Yuan Yelin, so he underestimated Yuan Yelin's role. But he knew clearly that Yuan Yelin was a trump card against Hirobito. This card alone was enough to defeat thousands of troops. But, then again, the whole ninja world is so big, with so many people, how could it be such a coincidence that you run into him again? King shook his head, still not caring about the boy's preparation. Qishuang said with a smile, it's not such a coincidence to run into him by chance, but I offended him too badly last time. If he deliberately came to my door, it's hard to say. Anyway, the girl has been dead for so long, I'm afraid the body has become a pile of bones. I don't think it's useful in the village, so why don't I find it for self-defense? Seeing that he insisted on checking the whereabouts of Yuan Yelin's body, King no longer dissuaded him, and immediately responded, okay, give me some time, I'll check the village files, and give you news then. After all, Yuan Yelin is not a member of Kirigakure, so there is naturally no taboo in using her body. King was also happy to help a little. Thank you, Captain. Qishuang hurriedly thanked. Chapter 248 Burial Ground. By the time Nanoshuang received King's reply, it was already a week later, and the celebration of the 4th Hokage's inauguration had ended. The guests dispersed, and the Hidden Mist village once again returned to its former tranquility. However, a playful young Mizukage was replaced. Unlike the old and quiet 3rd Hokage, this young Mizukage often appeared and disappeared in the village, having a lot of fun. The entire Hidden Mist village became his personal playground. Nanoshuang even saw that he was playing on the swing with a group of kids under 10 years old. Fortunately, although this one was playful and unreliable, he did not sit in the position of Mizukage and issue orders at random, causing any big chaos, which made the people below feel relieved. The situation in the Hidden Mist village remained extremely stable as expected by the 3rd Hokage. No one dared to challenge the majesty of the new Mizukage. After all, in the battle for the Mizukage, Yagura showed his overwhelming combat power, which was enough to suppress everyone's little thoughts. In the training ground, Qishuang whispered to a girl sitting cross-legged by the campfire. Ming, I'm going to the Blood Valley later. Are you going? Hearing this, the girl who had been staring at the campfire turned around and frowned. Why are you going to that unlucky place? Be careful not to get stained with strange dirty things. The Blood Valley is a place where the Kirigakure village specially uses to deal with enemy corpses. Anyone killed by the Kirigakure village or an unknown corpse will be thrown there and left to rot slowly. After all, those guys are not their own people, they can't bury them in their own graves, and they don't have the time to slowly dig a pit to bury them. Therefore, the Kirigakure village marked out such a place for dealing with enemy corpses a long time ago. A place dedicated to burying dead bodies, or enemy corpses, is naturally very unlucky. Very unlucky. Terumi Mei really couldn't figure out what Qishuang was going to do there. Didn't I tell you last time? I want to find the body of the girl named Yuan Yelin. Qishuang picked up a dead branch next to her and threw it into the bonfire and continued. A few days ago, I asked the captain to help me find her whereabouts. Yesterday, I just received a reply from the captain. It said that the girl's body has been thrown into the Blood Valley. So, I want to find her body as soon as possible. So that's how it is. After hearing his words, the girl showed a look of sudden realization. After the last battle for the Mizukage, she chased Qishuang to ask why she was looking for Yuan Yelin's body, and also knew Qishuang's idea of guarding against that person. However, liking, she thought that the chance of Qishuang meeting that person again was very slim. As for the talk of revenge, she didn't care much. After all, this is a hidden mist village. She didn't think that person had the courage to enter the hidden mist village to cause trouble. Then do you dare to go with me? Qishuang said provocatively. Originally, Terumi was not interested and had no intention of going, but after his provocation, she immediately raised her head and said, let's go. What's there to be afraid of? Then you won't practice your fire attribute chakra transformation? Nana Shuang smiled and joked, glancing at the bonfire on the ground. Since the end of the war, and with the stimulation of his battle with Zabuza, Terumi began to practice the fire attribute chakra transformation, preparing to practice her third chakra nature transformation. She said she wanted to learn the pioneering spirit of the second generation of Tsuchikage of Iwagakure and develop a new blood elimination. But seeing that a year was almost over, her fire attribute chakra transformation still hadn't touched the threshold, and as for studying blood elimination, it was even more distant. Hearing his joke, Terumi glared at him fiercely, stood up and said, it's been such a long time since I've mastered it, so I don't mind a little more time. Let's go to the Blood Valley together, just in time to relax. Maybe, when I come back from relaxing, I'll suddenly find the trick to the change of fire attribute chakra. As she said this, she spread out her palm and gathered the chakra in her palm. Then, Qishuang noticed a wave of water attribute chakra in her palm, and then a soybean-sized water droplet appeared, expanding at a speed visible to the naked eye. In a few breaths, it grew to the size of a basketball. Hiss. Terumi threw the water ball into the bonfire, but black smoke rose and the fire was immediately extinguished. Let's go to the Blood Valley now. She kicked the sand on the ground twice onto the fire and continued, speaking of which, I have only heard about the Blood Valley from my tribe, but I have never been there. Today I will learn a lot. As she spoke, her tone gradually became excited, as if she had found a new toy. Originally, she agreed to go to the Blood Valley, just to compete with Qishuang. Now, she found a reason for herself to go to the Blood Valley willingly. Then let's go. Seeing that she was interested, Qishuang was also happy to go to the Blood Valley as soon as possible to find Yuan Yelin's body. After leaving the hidden mist village, the two of them rushed all the way. About 10 minutes later, a valley mouth sandwiched between two mountains appeared at the end of the road. As the distance got closer, they could also faintly smell a strange odor in the air. The two people who had experience in battlefield life immediately recognized that it was the stench of corpses. The Blood Valley, where the corpses were buried, had arrived. As soon as they reached the valley entrance, Qishuang saw two mist ninjas rushing out of the bushes nearby, blocking their way. What are you two doing here? One of them asked with a frown. They were responsible for guarding the entrance to the Blood Valley and prohibiting others from entering and leaving at will. They also monitored the safety of this area and reported to the Hidden Mist Village in time when they found an enemy invasion. Because of its special function, the Blood Valley rarely had mist ninjas come here. They were familiar with the people who usually came here to dump corpses, but they had never seen this pair of boys and girls before them. Hearing this, Qishuang's eyes turned, and he said helplessly, "We dumped a corpse by mistake in our laboratory. The teacher scolded us and asked us to find it back. There is no other way. We have to come to this Blood Valley." As he said this, he showed a very reluctant and aggrieved expression. At the same time, Mediterumi next to him also pretended to be about to cry in tacit understanding. "Is that so?" The two mist ninjas who were blocking the road suddenly understood and immediately made way, gloating, "There is miasma in there. Be careful, don't fail to find the body and end up being the body inside." They were just conducting a routine interrogation and did not stop the young man and girl. "Thank you for your reminder, we will be careful." Qishuang thanked them repeatedly, then covered her mouth and nose, winked at the girl next to her, and walked straight into the valley in trance. Seeing this, Mediterumi followed suit and quickly followed. Chapter 249 Blood. The valley was quiet, without even a hint of insects or birds chirping. It was completely dead silent. Perhaps it was the lack of sunlight or the miasma. The mist in the air was obviously much darker than outside. Coupled with the strong smell of decay, the valley was even more eerie and terrifying. Only the red flowers all over the ground made this dead place look less depressing. Snap! A crisp sound came from behind, like a dead branch being stepped on and broken. Qishuang turned her head and saw Mediterumi frowning, slowly moving her feet away, and saw a broken bone exposed in the bushes. These bastards, why did they throw the body so close to the entrance? The girl covered her mouth and nose and cursed. As soon as she came in, she stepped on a piece of bone, which was really unlucky. Qishuang smiled slightly and whispered, "You blamed them wrongly." Huh. The girl cast a puzzled look. Qishuang continued, "No matter how lazy those guys who came here to dump the bodies were, they would never dump the bodies at this entrance. After all, they have to pass by here frequently, and I have checked the relevant information. It is said that the personnel responsible for dumping the bodies will dump the bodies in the village together, rather than throwing them out one by one. If they dumped the bodies at the entrance, there would not be only one bone under your feet." As he said this, he glanced around in a signal. In the area of several meters, there were only a few bones scattered here and there, and there were no large quantities of bones. Where did these bones come from? The bodies can't be running all over the ground. Mediterumi kicked the bones at her feet away with disgust, puzzled. Looking at the two pieces of bones that were kicked out, Qishuang said slowly, "The data shows that there are some scavenging wild wolves in this bloody valley. They are entrenched in this valley and often feed on the corpses discarded by the village. I think that bone was left here after being eaten by the wild wolves. Only in this way can the source of the scattered bones around be explained. After all, the corpse disposal personnel do not have so much free time to divide the corpses before throwing them away. You know, Kirigakure throws away a lot of corpses every month. If the corpses are divided and thrown away, the extra workload will more than double." After hearing this, Mediterumi cursed angrily, "These damn beasts. If it weren't for them, she wouldn't have encountered such an unlucky thing." As soon as she came in, suddenly, she seemed to have thought of something, and she caught up with him and said, "Since the wolves destroyed the corpse, how can you find the remains of Haranorin?" Qishuang rolled her eyes at her and said, "What do you think the tailed beast is? It's a top-level beast that is far superior to the wolves. Even if the three tails in Haranorin's body are stripped away, the aura of the three tails left on her body will not completely disappear. For those beasts that have no wisdom and only act on instinct, even a little bit of the aura of the tailed beast is enough to make them retreat and dare not offend. In addition, there are often corpses thrown here in the village. In addition to her, those wild wolves can find other corpses to eat. Haranorin's corpse will naturally not become the object of those wild wolves. It is precisely because of the protection of the aura of the tailed beast that Haranorin's corpse may be completely preserved, so he deliberately entered here to look for the other party. The tailed beast actually has this function?" Mediterumi was amazed. Looking to the east, Qishuang raised her hand and signaled, "Follow me." Every time the corpse was thrown, the corpse dumper would leave a record, recording the approximate location and time of the corpse dumping. According to the information that the youth team helped to find, Yuan Yelin's body was thrown in about a year ago, along with other bodies, to the east of the Blood Valley, about 1,000 meters away from the entrance. Now that a year has passed, there may be many new bodies in that location. It is not easy to find her. On the way, Terumi Mei followed closely behind Qishuang, looking around and saying, "Look at those flowers on the ground, they look really strange." Normally, with such heavy miasma in this valley, it would be good to have some weeds and shrubs. Flowering plants, which have relatively high requirements for air environment, are difficult to survive in such a harsh environment. And those flowers on the ground are not only abnormally gorgeous and prosperous, but also strangely distributed in clusters, growing together in groups, which is very strange. Then, she stopped and reached out, ready to pick a flower, to take a closer look. At this moment, Qishuang's anxious voice immediately stopped her. "Don't touch those flowers." "What? Is there something wrong with these flowers?" Terumi Mei's hand froze in front of a blood-red flower, and she turned her head in surprise. "Yeah." Qishuang nodded, released the hand covering his mouth and nose, and said solemnly, "Those flowers are unlucky. I guarantee that after touching them, you won't be able to eat for several days when you go home." "Ah." Although she didn't understand, Terumi Mei quickly pulled her hand back and said in surprise, "What's going on?" Looking at the blood-colored flowers on the ground, Qishuang said solemnly, "That is an ominous flower, an unlucky flower, that grows on corpses." According to the records of the Kirigakure village, because the village has been dumping corpses here for many years, the plants here have mutated and derived this kind of flower that grows on corpses as soil. As he said, he pointed around and continued, "Look at the other plants around. All of them are growing poorly because of the miasma here, and they look half dead. Only these flowers are growing abnormally strong. That's because the main component of miasma is the poisonous gas produced by the rotting of corpses. And these flowers grow on corpses as soil and feed on corpse gas, so naturally they are not afraid of miasma." Hearing this, Terumi's face was almost wrinkled into a bitter gourd. She rubbed the hand that was about to pick the flowers on her body again and again. It seemed that she wanted to wipe off a layer of skin on her hands. Earlier, she thought these bright red flowers looked pretty and pleasing to the eye. Now, no matter how she looked at them, she felt disgusting and unlucky. She dared to guarantee that she had never seen such disgusting things in her life. Seeing her disgusted look, Qishuang continued, "In fact, earlier, this valley had no name, but later when these flowers appeared, someone gave it a name, the Blood Valley. First, it refers to the color of these red flowers that fill the valley. Second, it refers to the countless corpses in the valley. Gradually, the name of this Blood Valley became widely known." Glancing at the surrounding environment, Terumi Mei frowned and said, "According to what you said, these flowers feed on corpses, so doesn't that mean that there are corpses buried under the red flowers that fill the valley?" Looking around, there are countless blood-colored flowers, faintly visible in the gray mist mixed with miasma. It is hard to imagine how many corpses are buried in this valley. Chapter 250 Miasma. Yes. Looking at the blood-colored flowers next to him, Qishuang sighed and continued, "According to records, these flowers only grow on corpses. In other words, under each cluster of flowers, there are 1, 2, 3, or even more corpses. Just lift up these flowers and you can find Yuan Yelin." In a sense, these ominous flowers are also a kind of alternative tombstone. He doesn't have to blindly dig in the valley to find corpses. He only needs to use the flowers as a guide to find the many discarded corpses. Ugh, these flowers are disgusting. Hearing that she had to lift up the flowers to search, Terumi was obviously reluctant. Seeing this, Qishuang said with a smile, "I didn't say to lift them directly with my hands. Why are you in such a hurry?" After that, he spread his hands, gathered the chakra in his palms, and transformed the nature of ice. With a trace of icy air, a 2-meter long popsicle appeared in his hands. "Take it." He handed the popsicle to the girl next to him and said, "The environment in this valley is dark and humid, and there are corpses everywhere, which is very suitable for poisonous snakes and insects to survive. Use this popsicle I gave you to sweep the flowers. It can not only scare away poisonous snakes and insects, but also avoid direct contact with those ominous flowers. Well, this is a good idea. Mediterumi took the popsicle happily and did not refuse. Then, Qishuang used chakra again and made a popsicle for himself. In fact, compared with those ominous flowers, he was more concerned about the poisonous snakes and insects hidden under those flowers. You know, the more severe the snakes and insects that live in the harsh environment, the more poisonous they are. Especially in this extraordinary world, the effectiveness of these poisons is far beyond ordinary poisons. If you are not careful, even a ninja's physique will be defeated by those inexplicable things. As the two gradually went deeper into the valley, the miasma in the air became stronger and stronger, and the stench was almost suffocating. Mediterumi, who was following behind, stopped, grabbed the corner of the boy's clothes with one hand, covered her mouth and nose with the other hand and said, "Qishuang, I can't stand it. This miasma is so strong. You have to think of a solution." Being pulled by her, Qishuang also stopped, covered her mouth and nose, and said helplessly, "I didn't expect that the miasma here would be so strong. If I knew it would be like this, I would have brought 2 gas masks." Qishuang regretted this. If he had prepared a gas mask, he wouldn't have to suffer this. Mediterumi frowned and became emotional after hearing this and said unhappily, "I don't want to hear your explanation. I just want to hear the solution." Looking at the grey mist in the air, Qishuang sighed. Originally, if you had practiced the fire attribute chakra transformation, you only needed one fire escape ninjutsu to burn these miasma to ashes. But unfortunately, you didn't practice it, so this method won't work. After saying that, he shrugged helplessly. Hearing that he was still teasing her about not having learned fire style, Mediterumi pinched the boy's waist hard and said angrily, "Think of another way." Qishuang rubbed the part of his waist where she pinched him and smiled reluctantly. "If fire can't be used, then use water." Water? Looking at the mist around, Mediterumi was thoughtful. At present, the miasma in the valley merged with the mist, which turned into a grey mist different from the outside. If the humidity in the air is increased, or if it rains directly, it will naturally weaken the concentration of the mist in the air, and then reduce the concentration of the miasma in the air. Well, let's work together to make it rain. Mediterumi, who had figured everything out, said to Qishuang immediately. Qishuang shook her head slightly and said, "You use water escape to increase humidity, and I use ice escape to cool down. This should be more effective." Lowering the temperature can not only promote the condensation of rainwater, but also inhibit the spread of surrounding miasma, extending the time for this round of rainfall to weaken the miasma. Okay. Terumi Medi nodded, quickly flipping her fingers and making hand seals one after another. At the same time, Qishuang also released a large amount of her ice attribute chakra into the air and used the ice attribute chakra to create cold air and lower the air temperature. Water escape, rain from the sky. After completing the hand seal, Terumi Medi released the accumulated chakra into the air, using her water attribute chakra as a guide to create tiny water droplets. And using the water attribute chakra's water control characteristics, it absorbs a large amount of water vapor in the air. Soon, the small water droplets grew rapidly, and the buoyancy in the air was not enough to support their weight. Under the cooling effect of Qishuang's ice release, the drizzle turned into heavy rain in a blink of an eye, and the heavy rain quickly turned into a rainstorm. At the same time, he also took the time to use ice attribute chakra to create a rain barrier, protecting the two people inside and blocking the rainstorm outside. With the sound of the rainstorm dripping on the ice barrier, the grey mist in the air dissipated at a speed visible to the naked eye, and the visibility of the environment that was less than 5 meters originally expanded to nearly 10 meters. The strong smell of rottenness also weakened a lot. The concentration of miasma immediately dropped a lot. About 3 minutes later, the chakra used by Mediterumi to cast the spell was exhausted, and the rainstorm finally stopped. "Let's go. Walk another 500 meters to the east, and we will almost reach the place where they threw away Yuan Yelin's body." After removing the ice barrier to block the rain, Qishuang took the lead and walked forward. This rain made the air much fresher, but the road was muddy and the shoes suffered a little. Without the obstruction of miasma, the two quickly arrived at their destination. Can you determine the exact location where they dumped the body? Mediterumi asked in surprise, looking at the clusters of red flowers all around. No. Qishuang shook her head and said, they only recorded an approximate dumping point, without a specific location mark. But I think the area should not exceed 100 meters. We only need to identify the corpses within 100 meters, and we should be able to find Yuan Yelin. Unless his luck is too bad, the group of guys who dumped Yuan Yelin's body last time were careless, and remembered the wrong dumping point. Then, he can only think of another way. But there are too many flowers within 100 meters. Mediterumi frowned. The area within 100 meters is almost filled with flowers, which also means that there are corpses everywhere nearby. It is really not an easy task to find the body of that person among them. Qishuang used the popsicle in her hand to push aside a bunch of flowers, revealing a broken skull, and whispered, I said before that there are wolves in this valley that will eat human corpses, but they are afraid of the breath of the tailed beasts and will not bite Yuan Yilin. So, apart from Yuan Yilin's body, there should not be many complete bodies. We just need to find those complete bodies and confirm them carefully, and we should be able to find her. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.